more as to why.
I know. So good morning. I'm so excited that at least we have a small enthusiastic group here today. And yes, we are recording because we, as you are even more well aware than we are, subs are short on the ground. You have a sub for your sub today. So we definitely want this available to all of our school counselors and our YA coordinators. So we're going to be recording this so they have access to this. So if we have not met, my name is Lynn April and I'm the career readiness coordinator here at CESA 9. I do that and other jobs as assigned at CESA 8 as well. So with me today, I have my two colleagues.
I'm Brooke Holbrook. I also work to support career readiness at CESA 8 and 9.
And I'm Val Brooks. I'm the CTEC for CESA 8 and 9, primarily dealing with Carl Perkins right now anyway.
So the reason that we came up with this workshop was because primarily through the work that we're doing with Carl Perkins and Youth Apprenticeship, everything now is about data. So we are collecting data constantly with regard to those programs. And now we're having to, for the first time, come up with SMART goals for those programs because they have funding attached to them. So our SMART goals have to align to gaps that we're seeing in the work that we're doing. And so it was very obvious this year as we looked at Youth Apprenticeship that last year, 2% of our students were students with disabilities in our Youth Apprenticeship program. And we know that Youth Apprenticeship has accommodations built into it so that it is something that students with disabilities can definitely do. And I'm going to talk about that more after our presenters are done this morning, but there are definitely things that we can do to accommodate for our students with disabilities in Youth Apprenticeship. We're seeing those same kinds of things in the Carl Perkins comprehensive local needs assessments, that as districts were collecting all of that data with regard to career and tech ed, that we were seeing really a big gap between students without disabilities and students with disabilities engaging with any of those components for the pathways through Carl Perkins. So one of the ideas that we had was to get some folks together and not just looking at Youth Apprenticeship, but looking at all different kinds of ideas for how you can be bringing more work-based learning in your district. So that was the idea behind today, not just looking at Youth Apprenticeship. What are some really cool things that are happening out there right here in CESA 9 in other school districts that you might not know about? And so that's who we reached out to as presenters for today. And it is to give our Youth Apprenticeship coordinators ideas that they can bring back with them outside of Youth Apprenticeship, because work-based learning, there are so many different avenues.
Recording in progress. Oh, sorry guys. I think problem solved.
Okay. So many different avenues that our students can pursue for work-based learning. It doesn't have to be just Youth Apprenticeship, and we want all of those opportunities out there. So we even want our Youth Apprenticeship folks to be thinking about if YA isn't a good fit for our students with disabilities, what are other things that I might be able to recommend to folks in my district? And of course, our special ed teachers and our special ed coordinators, you folks work with this constantly. So that's exactly what we're looking at this morning, is what are some different awesome programs that are out there that you can bring those ideas back to your district. So we are going to be hearing this morning from a number of folks with their programs. So we're going to be starting with Janine and Pfeiffer, okay, who is heading up the WINGS program at Lakeland Union School District. And then we should have online shortly, hopefully, Rod Olson, who now does project search through Rhinelander School District. I know they used to do project search through CESA 9, but my understanding is now it's shifted to Rhinelander. And then Michelle Arlen and Brian who have the partnership with Antigo School District and Goodwill with their students with disabilities. So we'll hear about their program. And then the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation is going to be sharing what DVR can do in order to help those students with disabilities to be successful as they are looking at work-based learning, and then ending with the PACE program through Rhinelander School District. So that's the idea this morning, is just to learn about all of the different awesome programs that are out there and things that we can think about emulating in our school districts. So any questions before we get started with our speakers? Great. Okay, then I will turn it over to Janine and we will get her.
wrap up. Are you guys clicking? So I see.
Yep,
Okay.
if that works,
Okay.
unless you want to, well, I don't think
No,
you,
that's okay. I
Okay.
can just
okay,
let you know. when
Yep.
it's time to Click or.
Yep,
links.
just
So
let
I
me
didn't bring any handouts. All of everything that I included are links in the slideshow. So you'd be able to access anything that I'm talking about. So I'm from Lakeland Union High School. I headed up the Wings program 5 years ago. My name's Jenny Pfeiffer, 1F, not 2 like Michelle. So that was the only difference. If you try to email me, it's 1F, not 2. So WINGS stands for Working Independently and Gaining Self-Determination. So that's really our focus of our program. We are a community-based transition program for students in special education. We started 5 years ago. Our main premise is to take students outside into the community. So taking the skills that they've learned in the high school and moving them out into the real world. So we started actually 5 years ago in a church. We utilize the church space, their common area and their kitchen area as our program. So the students would start their day, they would come to the church. We did our work prep and then they went out into jobs. A year later, we had moved into an apartment-like setting where then the students were kind of learning more independent living skills and learning how to take care of like an apartment and coming there and doing chores and, you know, learning some basics, you know, the toilet box, what do you do? We need snacks. Well, what's in the pantry? So we've kind of transitioned a little bit, and this year we're actually, we moved our program. I don't know if some of you heard, we had a fire in Minocqua and we had lost our space from last year. So we had actually since moved into a resale store, which had been donated to our program called Kids Closet. So right now our students are located right inside of a resale store. So again, some of them, like they start their day, they go into the community. Some of them are running the store. Some of them are going out into job experiences. So our main focus is utilizing the community as our classroom. So who we are, we target students who have IEPs. Some of them are completed their high school credits. Some of them have gone through graduation and they are continuing on their education to get their transition services. Some are seniors. I have some seniors that are in the middle of the transition process. They kind of have like 1 foot in the high school and like 1 foot into the community. Some of them will actually go on to other things. Some will come and stay in our program full time. We do have students that are in need of alternative curriculum to meet requirements. And this is why I was excited about Youth Apprenticeship. And a few years ago, I tried to see how some of these students can be involved because as I'm sure you all know, high school classroom just doesn't work for some students. So we tried to create this alternate curriculum that the students that just, the high school is not for them. You know, what else can they do? Can they go out in the community? Can they have jobs? Can they do job shadows? Can they be involved in community service? Can they do volunteering? So some of them have actually been referred to our program to be part of that. So what we were able to do is if you click the link, we were able to,
sorry.
The link, we have been able to actually award students academic credits for participating in our program. So the students that were failing math and science and social studies were able to get credits through our program. So I developed work in progress, these competency-based standard checklists that line up to either essential elements or maybe to ACP, to health. So students that couldn't really make it in those classrooms were coming out to our program and they were cooking, they were going to the fitness center, they were doing community service, utilizing public transportation, going on job shadows. So we kind of looked at the activities that they were doing in our program and linked them to standards. So we kind of kept these checklists as running ways that we were able to award them credits. So students were actually not just in my WINGS program, they were also in a math 12 or an English 12 or social studies 12. And we were able to kind of then help them get through their high school programming. And we've had some students that probably would have dropped out because they just didn't like it in the high school. So we got them out in the community doing things and we were able to give them credit through this. Okay, we can close out of that.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of different students in our program because this is our mission statement. So really it's giving them experiences and opportunities in the community. So it's not just necessarily work or independent living. We focus on those things, but we really try to create a program on what those students want to do. No two students in our program have the same schedule, so we really individualize the student schedule based on their needs, based on their goals. I have one student who comes to me 2 days a week. 2 days a week he's at Nicolay. Actually, he's there 3 days a week. He goes to Nicolay for another day of getting some extra help. So we really tailor and customize what the students need and what their goals are. We really focus on the students trying things. You know, this is their opportunity to find their niche. You know, I'm kind of amazed at how many students have never had an opportunity to go to Lake Superior or to learn about the different dams and rivers and parks that are in our community. So we try to teach the students, you know, what's in their community and give them those opportunities to say, hey, just try it. We went on about 25 job shadows and job tours last year. And it's like, oh, I really don't want to work in a pizza place. Well, it doesn't matter. Go there, find out what it takes to be a manager of a restaurant. Or I had a student who wanted to be a mortician. So we had actually set up for her to go to a funeral home, and they met with them there. And another student kind of was like, well, I'll tag along. And he was actually surprised to learn how much sales was involved in that job, that there were other aspects of jobs that you might go, yeah, I don't want to do that, but give it a try. We have students that go to different job sites, like the Waters in Minocqua. It's a big hotel, and we do laundry and we clean the breakfast bar area, but I tell them, don't just stop there, because the Waters actually will hire our students. So some of our work-based learning opportunities lead to paid employment, and you show yourself that you're a good employee, and maybe that'll lead to a job in the maintenance department or even the front desk, or you never know. So we're always trying to make our students think about what some of these opportunities could lead into, and just to try stuff, just to, you know, give it a try, give something a try, go visit it, go stop at that store. You know, we take them out shopping, we take them to St. Matthias, we take them to Goodwill, we take them, you know, to all different places just to see what's out there. The link where it says program manual.
Sorry, I'm clicking, but it like,
I did include our program manual that I created, and I'm sorry, but my voice is going. I think it's that allergy time of year that everyone's going through. So if you wanted to look to see our goals, our missions, our objectives, I do have a flow chart that is included in there that kind of talks about the progression right here of students, you know, and moving on to different things. And it's kind of interesting that Pays Lab is here, and DDR and Project Search, because they're all involved. We can't do this without the collaboration of all the efforts. So I did actually include a page of all of our community partnerships too. So that's in here as well. Oh yeah, that was it. So our students start at pre-vocational high school instruction. They go on to our vocational training wings program, DVR, competitive employment, DVR natural supports. And I did have Project Search there, but it's moved out of our area. So that's, you know, a little bit more of a challenge for some of our students to transition to that program. But we still do refer students to Project Search from our program. All right, next slide. So what we do, we teach students the skills that they need to be successful in their adult life, whether that means getting a job, living on their own. And through the years I've been doing this, I don't write IEP goals on how to fold towels or how to wash dishes. I actually write goals, how to problem solve, how to become more independent, how to make good decisions, how to get along with people, how to reflect on yourself and be aware of yourself in the community. How are you perceived by other people? And then how do we get along with everyone else? And what was actually kind of cool, if you go to the next slide, this is actually our social emotional competencies. And recently, Wisconsin DPI had linked our social emotional competencies to what they define as their employability standards. So in essence, what we do is we're teaching self-awareness, self-management, how to get along with people, how to problem solve, how to maintain integrity on the job site. So we really, since we don't have a curriculum, we don't follow math standards or science standards, we're actually following now these social emotional standards. So my students are developing goals for themselves. Every day we have a word of the day. They're reflecting on today's awareness or acceptance. So we talk about these things and we talk about them in real time. So that's where our instruction comes from. And really it's teaching these skills. And I included the guide that Wisconsin had put out about how they define workforce readiness and how the social emotional standards really are a core key of preparing our youth and our students for the world of work. So I included these resources in there.
Yeah, we frequently tell districts who don't always think that they're doing ACP if they're doing social emotional learning. We're like, that's employability skills. You're doing ACP.
Exactly. And that's why I was like, oh, those are my IEP goals all the time, you know, communication, social communication, problem solving. And so I always try to wrap my head around what's our curriculum, and there it is, you know, this is what we're doing. And what we're doing is we're doing it in the moment, you know, we're giving those students those opportunities to do it in the moment. And then we can reflect on it, you know, and say, you know, like when the customer leaves the store and, you know, when you said this, how do you think maybe, you know, we've done that a little bit different? And we just kind of give those kind of real time, hands-on opportunities for them to reflect on their skills and to learn. So how we do what we do, kind of talked about this. So it actually starts way before high school. I've done presentations for teachers and family members of middle school, that this should be starting even in middle school, you know, with chores at home, exploring job interests, you know, when you go out to a store, hey, you know, check out the people who are working in the store. What are they doing? Do you think you'd like to do that someday? You know, we really try to do this early on. But for our district, we start in the high school. We have pre-vocational classes through our ID program. And she teaches the students, she has class periods for pre-vocational skills. She does in-school jobs. They have a T-Bird Brew, which is a school coffee shop. So the students in that program run a coffee shop. They do deliveries, so they get an opportunity to go around and do deliveries in the school. We also have a PAYS lab, which our students also access to start learning the skills that they need. Once they're ready, then we make that transition to the community. So they do some community experiences, but then we really focus on moving them into the WINGS program. So some of her students have come to me like the need for the afternoon. So some students need more of a transition in their day. And we use, and again, going back to the core of academics, we are using community-based instruction. And that is included in the manual to explain that, you know, we are providing our instruction in the community. We're utilizing the community as our classroom, where students are learning how to communicate in different environments, going to the grocery store, going to the bank, utilizing public transportation. We go and we deliver flyers. So we're having a grand reopening of our store. So the students are taking the flyers out and they're giving them to the business owners and asking for donations. We used to hand out event flyers for Campanile Center. So that was one thing the students loved doing, is they would go to all the businesses and hand out their event flyers for Campanile for their monthly events. This leads into our community partnerships. So can't do this without our community, you know, our partnerships and the relationships that we've developed, and we've done it through these things. Our students go in and out of these places and they get to know them. And then all of a sudden, hey, I really want to work at Ruby's Chef Shop. That looks like a cool place because I really love cooking. And the owner that has known us for coming in and out of there constantly with different flyers and event flyers. And a couple years ago, we actually we tried to create kind of like a Uber Eats. And we partnered up with 2 establishments in Minocqua, and we delivered lunches. We offered lunch service delivery for 2. We were kind of on call, and when they would get orders, they would call us and we would make those deliveries. And again, making our students' presence known in the community is huge, because that's where we transition our students to. We give them back to the community. We want the community to be those natural supports, so they know our students. And so when we were doing the lunch deliveries, we got to know so many more businesses and more partnerships, that when we expanded and actually took over and created a school store, our school store last year was solely funded by donations from our community. We asked for community members to donate or sponsor a month's rent. And I was just surprised at how many businesses got their checkbooks out and said, what do you need? You know, and wrote out checks right there, just because they knew what we did, what we were trying to do. They knew our students and they were more than happy to help. So we were able to actually create some of these opportunities just from developing these partnerships and the relationships and keep those growing. So when we did need something or we wanted to expand, they were more than willing to step up and say, hey, what can we do to help? On the bottom, there is just the job shadows and job tours and business tours that we take our students on all the time. So, you know, just looking at different restaurants, like I said, we went on over 20, 25 last year, just so students can see and learn about different jobs. Next slide. So we do work-based learning. This is something that if you want to click to it, it just takes you to the link from DPI that talks about work-based learning. And it says that work-based learning can be paid or not paid. So a lot of times we go to businesses and we try to make it a win-win and we say, you know, we can do this as a non-paid experience. If you give a student an opportunity to start learning some of the jobs, maybe we can do jobs that can save you time. So we try to present it that way. And we do support our students. I do have paraprofessionals that will go out and support the students. So we do kind of follow the 90 hours. We do have a training plan and a training agreement that we have the parents sign, the business sign to explain that this is part of their educational program. So if it's a non-paid position, they can only be here for so long, part of their their educational plan. And everyone kind of knows what the student's working on as part of that. So if you go back to the slide, I included the forms that I've been using. And I was actually surprised because I was trying to find where I found these. So I just Googled like work-based learning plans and they're all over. There are so many districts and so many states are utilizing these. So I just changed it to Lakeland Union School District. And this is our unpaid work-based learning training agreement. And then we mark that it's like a training, no more than 90 hours. And we kind of have what all the responsibilities are of each party. If you scroll down. School responsibilities, what the work site is responsible for, parent, guardian, student, and then everybody signs it. And then if you keep going down is our training plan. So this is where we put in like how many hours, how many days. Oh, I had 120 hours because Department of Labor was 120, but Wisconsin's 90. So didn't get a chance to change that one. And then we write what their IEP goals are, what they're working on, and what their job tasks are. So everyone's on the same page.
The 90 for Wisconsin is in order for the work-based learning to be recognized like on the pathways through Carl Perkins, it has to be at least 90. So if it's 120, that's awesome.
Okay. And then we do have a sign-in sheet. So the students learn to sign in and out of all their jobs. If you keep going up. So down, sorry, down. It's just it's the form we use for them to learn to sign in and out. So they have a work binder. They go to their job site, they sign in, they sign out, they track their hours on this form, just so then we know how long that they've been working on there. And it just teaches them that skill too, that when you go to a job, we treat this as a job. This isn't just go here and, do these things, but treat it like a job. So we want to, kind of get them into that routine of doing that. We do have an awesome partnership with DVR. Deb's online somewhere.
Yep.
So they help our students with temporary work experiences. So all of our students, most of them are hooked up with DVR, and then those get built in or can get built into their students' day. And we've helped with transportation and, kind of help customize their day based on those temporary work experiences. And some of our work-based learning, again, I mentioned lead into paid jobs. So like the Waters, they will put the students on their payroll and that becomes a paid job. Our overall goal is for students to have paid jobs. It's a process. They have to start somewhere and they have to start developing the skills, developing their resume, find out what they like, find out what they don't like. And I keep telling them it's okay to say you don't like doing this. Mm-hmm. So many students do things because they're told to do it. It's like, it's okay to say, hey, I really don't like doing this, or hey, I really want to try this. So we're really kind of trying to teach that self-advocacy piece too, that we're not gonna, this is your opportunity to try things and find out what you want to do for your future. Yes.
I have a question about DVR.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a student, like, are they at a certain grade level at this point when they're going out to work-based learning?
Most of them are 12th grade and older.
Okay.
So some of them are outside of high school, but I should have some seniors. I've had couple juniors, but really that senior year is when they start coming out to us.
Okay, so they could be there a couple of years or whatever.
Yeah.
And DVR will pay for all those supports the whole time while they're there.
Well, DVR will pay for what they put in their plan. So they create an individualized
Right.
plan with the students. So depending what those services are. And I know Deb's going to be talking about that. As part of it. So some of our students will, this is the temporary work experience is one of the main services that DVR provide while they're in the school. So while they're in the school is providing most of the services. We're providing the transportation, we're providing our parent
Okay.
support, we're providing any supplies. But if a student's referred for temporary work experience, they'll contract out to our adult agency, which is Headwaters, and they will pay for that service to occur. So they'll pay for the job developer to go out and secure a temporary work experience, and then DVR will pay the wages while they're doing that temporary work experience.
Okay. Even if it's like, so if the individual does multiple work experiences, they'll continue to pay for it.
Well, Deb can probably talk to that a little bit more than I
Okay.
can, because they'll pay for experiences that focus on new skills or interest areas. Is Deb there? Am I explaining that correctly? Is she on there?
She's on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Apparently
I'm
she
here.
unmuted.
I'm
Oh,
here. I
she's-
just kind of lost connection a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to be getting into a lot of this, so I think these type of questions can be referred to me
Sure.
in regards to DVR.
Thank you. And obviously our goal is that these maybe temporary work experiences will lead into a paid job. And then they're secured on a paid job, and this has led into it. So if that temporary work experience doesn't work out, we'll kind of sit back and say, okay, what's a new area or a different job site that you want to explore? And then we sit down with DVR, and then they write that into the plan. So it's kind of a collaborative effort. And then Deb can explain how long they stay with students once they are on a paid job. Yes.
How big is your school district? And like, what's the number of kids you typically work with?
Right now, I have 14 on my caseload, but 5 are involved actively in the wings program. So I also case manage students that are in the high school, but I have 5. 1, 2, some of them are full-time though, that are with us all day. I have 1 student that goes back to the high school for 1 class, and then I have the 1 student who goes to Nicolay a couple of days a week. And I have 1 student who's only with us a half a day. So again, they're all varying. And this is one thing that, I talked to Stephanie Hartzheim, I think she's online, and even like our EBD teachers and, our LD students and these students that, may not go on to college, but they're struggling in the high school setting, that this can be an avenue where students can get out and get their education a different way that works for them. Primarily, my students in my program are IB, but I have had some of the EBD students get referred because, hey, they're just not cutting it. But one of the requirements of my program is to want to be there and to want to go out and work and do the things. And we kind of ran into that too, where it's like, no, you don't have an option just to sit there and not go. You have to go and want to go out and do these things. So it's like we almost have to have a tiered level of programming, because I have some students that are like, hey, we'll go out and do anything that you tell us to do this way, and then you get some of those kids that are like, I ain't doing that, and you can't make me do that, and they don't show up, and they it's a different population to work with. But some of the students that I had last year would have been perfect, except they didn't want jobs. They come to a program and they don't want to work. I don't want to have a job right now. And it's like, well, hey, but this is the time to actually start that process, because it's not as easy as you think it is, to get out after graduation and walk into a place and get hired. It's a process, and so it's a challenge, but I think some of these other students that have come, we have helped them. I would like to think, even if it's working in our store, I push this self-entrepreneurial skills on them, that, okay, if you're not gonna go out and have a job, what is something that you can still be doing if you don't want to be working, on the community? So we have a Cricut maker. So the students were making and designing coffee mugs and selling them, and tote bags and t-shirts and all different types of things, and giving them those opportunities to, hey, why don't you guys come up with something? So those 2 students that didn't want to have a job, I gave them jobs of, let's make some benches. And they took on a project of, finding blueprints to make benches. They went out to the lumber store, got the lumber, they put together the benches, they stained them, they went to our, wood shop to cut the wood. So even though they may not want to have a job, we really try to focus on skills that could lead to a job. Hey, did you like building that? Did you like working with tools? Did you like, doing those kind of things? And what are other things that we can build on that? So we've done things like photography last year at this time. It's like, hey, let's go out and take pictures. And so some of the kids went out and they took pictures and they sent them to me. We printed them at Walmart, and we bought frames. We went to, Goodwill and to St. Matthias, and we bought frames. They priced them, they put them in our store to sell. We were making terrariums and little gnome gardens. So some of the students were involved in planting. We did a big plant sale. So my 2 students that didn't want to have jobs, they were kind of primarily in charge of doing all the seeds and taking care of the plants, making our terrarium gardens. We had some students make keychains. We've done electronic recycling. So I have a student this year who's kind of undertaking the electronic recycling fundraiser program. So we're going to do that. That's going to be one of his jobs. So we kind of say, what can you do if you don't want to go work out at a community business? What are things that you can do for yourself that you can possibly make money doing in the future? So we kind of explore some of those things. And then we have our student-based enterprise, which right now we took over Kids Closet in Monaco, and we changed it to Lakeland Kids Closet because we moved our Lakeland school store into this resale store, Kids Closet. Now the students are taking in donations, pricing, sorting, organizing, and we sell our Lakeland merchandise in the store, and then the students are running the store. So we kind of have a school store, and they're taking those skills and again going out in the community. So on any given day, they're either at the store working, or they're out in the community at a job site, or they're going to the fitness center. We go to equine therapy. We go shopping. We go on errands. I mean, just day-to-day things. Hey, you need to take this to Postal Express and mail it. We buy things on Amazon and we have to return it. What's the process of making a return? So our students are out and about all day, whether it's here at our Kids Closet or they're out on other jobs. The next slide. So these are just pictures. That's our store this year. I did also call it Lakeland Kids Closet because we are also helping other programs. So Student Council has some of their merchandise in the store that we're selling it for them. So then they get their proceeds of the items that they sell. So we're just trying to make a bigger presence in our community so people know, they know who we are. They're educated about our students. They come in and out. Our students are out and about. They love the store. They love working there.
What are the hours to your store then?
Right now, we're school hours. So we're there 9 to 3. I mean, we're there first thing in the morning because in the back of the store is kind of a little kitchen area. And we start our day there. So our students start their day who come there. So I have students that don't step foot in the high school. They moved on. One drives. And then we don't pick up students. So we try to push to hey, if you're done with high school, you're not coming into the high school building to socialize or get lunch anymore, because we have to teach you that there isn't just going to be a cafeteria lunch waiting for you if you forget your lunch. What are we going to do if you forget your lunch? So some of them will start their day there. We get there about 8 o'clock. They do their group and their word of the day, and they set their goals, and we start opening the store. So we're kind of in that building right away at 8 o'clock, but we officially open at 9.
So do you have an instructional or job coach?
I have two parents right now
that are running back. Well, you're back.
I'm usually there running it. So that's my classroom.
Okay.
So I'm usually the one in the store all day, and my 2 parents are out in the community with the students.
Where's it located?
In Monaco by Walmart, right next to Papa Murphy's. So Papa Murphy's, the owner of the building, and he runs Papa Murphy's. So the guy who runs our pop-up markets, we've had a relationship with over the last several years because they do fundraising. And the space next to them was actually for rent. And I had gone to them and said, hey, we're looking to expand our store, because we were looking to expand our store anyways, just because we were getting bigger and more items. And they talked and they said, well, instead of renting the space, how about we donate to the Wings Program Kids Closet for you guys to run. We self-sustain. So last year, like I said, the school board, we didn't ask for money. We made all our sales, or we asked for donations, and we did fundraising. So with the circumstances this year, with our losing our last store and all that, you know, we'll be in the same boat. So we'll be self-sustaining our business.
Can you talk about your startup funding and how the program developed?
For the Wings program
Yeah.
or for the store?
Both.
So the Wings program, we had started, I guess just because I saw the need of students that were staying in the high school, their 5th, 6th year, they were 18, 19, and they were still in the high school. And we didn't have anything like this. So I approached our director at the time to say, can we create something offsite for the students? We didn't have much funding, so that's why we went to the church, because they didn't charge us anything to be there. We did look at like kind of what curriculum costs were for a typical classroom, and that's really what I've been allotted to help buy like groceries and utilize out in the community. And then we just did a lot of like kind of the fundraising things. We make fire starters. I mean, that's ironic as it sounds. But I mean, you'd be amazed, like the resorts buy them up. You know, the resorts, they put them in their cabins and then they sell them. The owner of Bad Bones Barbecue, he uses them to like start his smokers. So he'll come in and be like, hey, I got $200. How many fire starters can I get? And, you know, so we found ways to make additional money through those efforts. The school then agreed a year after that, I presented the need to move into our own space, because utilizing a church space wasn't really ours. And the students needed to learn more independent living skills. So they agreed to pay rent at the location that we were at, which provided us a little apartment like setting. So they were paying rent for that and utilities. And they said, if you want to start a school store, that's all you. So that's why we had gone to businesses to say, would you be willing to sponsor a month's rent? And then we made a big banner, and we thanked all the businesses. We have a newsletter, we give them their logo on the back of our newsletter. We give them all appreciation plaques at the end of the year, you know, to thank them for being a partner of our program. So we had raised money that way. We also had donations. Packerland thing, I mean, they had a lot of Lakeland merchandise that they weren't selling. So they donated a bunch of Lakeland merchandise. They donated a bunch of things for our store, racks, hangers. I mean, ask and I guess you shall receive, you know, which was just amazing that so many people just stepped forward to help us. And then this year, just through the recovery of what we had lost, is paying for some of what we're doing right now. But in my head, I know we'll have to self-sustain, just because I know budget and money and business and bottom line. So we're really trying to build this up so that we can self-sustain. So we're going to have a grand opening event, and we're getting the radio station out. Lakeland Times is coming out this week. So we just try to do as much PR. Our students were on the news last year for our grand opening, and that was like the best thing. Like they thought that was like, they all got interviewed by the news reporter, and they all got on TV, and it was just awesome that they were like, oh my gosh, we were on TV and they're famous. And it just made, again, educating our community and making our presence known, and then asking even just for raffle donations. What do you need? How much money do you need? You know, and oh yeah, absolutely, we'll help you out. So we're hoping that this will be a long-term endeavor for us. But this is where we're at right now. It's been awesome. And then I think the last page is just my email and my phone number if anybody wants to contact me or have any follow-up questions, or anybody wants to come out and see what we do. You're more than welcome to come out and visit us.
Do you have any other questions?
Sounds like an amazing program.
It does.
I think every one of us would want one.
We just wrote notes because Brooke and I are heading up that way later in November. I'm like, okay, here's where it is. We'll come visit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, definitely.
That'd be
I
great.
mean, it's fun. I mean, it's just kind of fun coming up with some of these ideas too, you know, where it's like, what can we do this year? We want to like make bat houses and bee houses. And I have a staff person who used to be a conservationist. So we're
Mm.
really utilizing her skills. So she does some science lessons. So when we say we give some of the students science credit, she took them out on one of our hiking trails and they saw bees and we talked about bees and how important bees are. And she grows them or whatever. Like, you know, she has them in her fridge and then talked about apples and how they, you know, help with like making things that we eat. And then she brought in homemade applesauce and, you know, tied it up, you know, through that. And so anything that we can kind of grab at it for an opportunity where we try to do that and see where it leads us.
I love your logo.
Mhm.
Thanks. I can't take credit for it. But, yeah, so yeah, thank you again. I mean, this was
We
exciting.
got one more
Yeah.
question over here. Oh,
Yes, so that actually leads, one of the questions was about our hours. Because I know the need to be open, especially in a tourist town, like on the weekends and summer and evenings. So I've had some community members ask about volunteering. So we're gonna be tapping into community members to possibly come help run the store after hours. And then on the summer, a couple summers ago, Headwaters had started a transition summer program and actually utilized our building. So one of the ideas we had is if we had a summer school program and offered it to other school districts and say we have a summer program and it'll be geared toward learning retail skills and running the store, and maybe other school districts will, you know, send their students. So that will be a work in progress to possibly, you know, even offer this to tuition and students. That had been my idea when we started the transition program, is to be able to tuition in. But as we kind of run with Project Surge, we run into a big barrier called transportation.
Mhm.
And how to get students when you have such a wide span of, you know, where kids are coming from. So that becomes kind of a issue too, is how do we get kids to and from programs and our site. So that may be up and coming, having a program where the districts can send their students.
So it kind of sits unopen right now in the summer.
Yeah, last summer we closed.
Is your district owned it and giving you the opportunity to, like, I was just in a session where, I don't know if anybody knows about the food truck in Oshkosh and that program and what they're doing, but they're like self-sustaining year round, and they hired an instructional assistant or job coach or teacher to do this because they're year-round jobs. So I just didn't know what.
Yeah, that was one of the talks, is that the money coming in of the store would help pay for a teacher over the summer to be able to run it, or if we tuition students in from out of district or offered it with that kind of program, to be able to hire somebody to be able to run it year round. I mean, even now it's like, oh, you open on Saturday, you know, and we have to leave at 3 because, you know, kids got to get on the bus and stuff. So it's a new grounds we'll be exploring this summer and what'll happen. But I do, you know, there is a need to keep it open. But you know, we don't
a little bit of drive for us.
All right, and I'm sorry I can't stay, but we have a store to run and subs that are getting pulled all over the place, so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janine. That was
so much.
fabulous.
Yeah, great information. So we see that Rod has joined us online, so I'm going to turn it over to Rod Olson, who does project search through Rhinelander School District, and we have his PowerPoint that Brooke will have up. So Rod, if you want to, the slide to advance, just say next, and Brooke will do that for you. So
Or
thanks for
Rod,
joining us.
Rod, if you want to share your screen, if that's easier, certainly you can do that.
I think we'll leave it with you.
Oh,
We've got the hospital Zoom meetings have been sometimes tough to handle everything with the internet here on the guests. So We can just leave that as we have it. That'd be perfect.
Okay, hold on just a second.
Okay.
I'm just going to shut down some of these windows. Make it function a little bit quicker for us. And here we are. Okay.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I am Rod Olson from our Northwoods Project Search site. We are centered in Rhinelander this year. Last year, we were up in Monaco Woodruff at the Howard Young Medical Center. This year, we are at the Aspirus Hospital in Rhinelander. Project Search is a multi-agency supported organization. Our first screen there, you'll notice that ODC, Opportunity Development Center, is listed on there. That's recently changed to Goodwill. And what Goodwill does is they provide skills training and job development for Project Search. And then the rest of our partners remain the same, as you can see on this first screen. So next. So how it started is it started in a children's hospital in Cincinnati. And what Project Search is it's a embedded program for students with disabilities to obtain some employment skills. Most of the Project Search sites are in hospitals. That's due to the founding where it started, but it's also a institution that has a lot of different departments. So there's a lot of different job skills that they can learn on one site. In Wisconsin and nationwide, we also have several sites that are places at Milwaukee Zoo has one. The Wisconsin Dells has theirs in one of the large water park facilities. So several in Florida are at zoo. So anything that has a big or large number of departments is an ideal site. Right now, there's over 600 programs across 45 states, 9 countries. Currently, we have 30 Project Search sites in Wisconsin. I believe some of our attendees today are from the Wausau area, and we do have one there at the Aspirus Wausau Hospital. Next. So what Project Search does is we have students that are in their last year of eligibility, and then we also have adult learners from the community that may have missed the opportunity, some that have just graduated. And we get them in a internship program in our hospital here. Each internship lasts 10 weeks in 3 different departments. So during the first 3 weeks, we have some onboarding, some class time. We get them ready to go into the hospital for the first time. And then throughout the 30 weeks, each morning starts with about an hour and a half of class and then 4 to 5 hours of work. We start the day at 8 and we end at about 2:30. We work on the host schools calendar. So it's a school year calendar starting in September and ending in May. Transportation, depending on where each intern comes from and whether they're a student or an adult learner, is either provided by for the district, for the parents, by themselves if they're able to, and then long-term care also helps. Next. So the mission is to provide valuable employment and life skills training for young adults with disabilities in a compassionate healthcare environment to benefit our community. Next. So the goal at the end is to try to get every intern employed within a week or 2 of graduation. So far, we've been hitting, about 60% up here in the Northwoods. We want to try and have them get at least 16 hours per week. Currently out of our class last year, we have almost 20 hours for the majority of them that have found employment. So that's really good. We even have one that has obtained 40 hours, has his own apartment, he has full benefits, and has become almost completely independent. We want them to try and start at just above minimum wage in an inclusive environment and something that's within their interest that they've developed prior to Project Search or through the Project Search rotations. Next. Right now for partnering districts, Crandon, Leona, Phelps, Three Lakes, Lakeland, Northland Pines, Rhinelander, and Tomahawk. We are working towards Elko. It's a possibility that Anago, we can also get into the Northwoods or Wausau. So basically about a 30 to 45 mile radius of Rhinelander is where our site is based. We have interns this year traveling from Crandon, Manitowish Waters, Lac de Flambeau, Eagle River. We have had some from other districts, and we anticipate, hopefully in the future, some from Tomahawk and some from Elko, and then we, of course, we have some from Rhinelander. Next. So a year at a glance, we kind of hit on that a little bit. That's kind of a real good snapshot in those transition weeks. What each intern does is has a week to review, reflect on what went well in the first internship and what we need to work on for the next internship. It's also what we have as a time period for what we call an EPM. An EPM is called it's an employment planning meeting. It's real similar to an IEP. The intern runs the meeting, however, and within that, their DVR rep, perhaps their caseworker from school, their parents, their job developer, myself, parents, sit in on those meetings, and we discuss where we're going and how their progress has been. Next. Curriculum, real similar transition type of a curriculum. We work a lot on appropriate conversations. Because we're in a hospital, we do a lot with hospital etiquette. We have to throw in some HIPAA, things that are specific to this employer. If we were to change employers, we would be, working under their guidelines. So the curriculum would also include that. And then keeping your job. Each intern, as we get to the end of the year, end of each rotation, we really focus in on what that specific intern has to do to stay employed in the future. Next, please. Internship sites are developed through the host business. Multiple sites is the goal to give interns a choice. Interns work about 4 hours a day. The goal is to learn competitive, marketable, and transferable skills. They also develop social skills, eating in the cafeteria, purchasing their own lunch, working well with coworkers, constant transitions throughout the day, and then out throughout the 10-week cycles. They do a lot of transitioning and getting used to, busting out of routine. And that seems to be a challenge, but most of them enjoy it after they become comfortable with it. It's an integrated setting, so we are considered employees of the hospital, and all the expectations are the same. We do skill building to the fullest potential. We start with some level 1 skills and then try to build them up as high as we can. And then the departments also start to add higher level tasks as the 10 weeks go on. And we also work closely with the site mentor from the hospital here. So each intern will have a mentor that they work with within the department, as well as our skills trainer and myself. We got about a 4-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio of support for them during the workday. Next. Currently, our departments at Aspirus Rhinelander, we have administration, dietary, emergency, environmental services, cancer center, supply chain, laboratory, physical therapy, ambulance department, radiology and imaging, and the medical surgery clinic in Bedouin. Next. Daily schedule. You'll see the classroom starts out in the morning, 8 to 9:30. We have a break. Currently, we have an off-site classroom at another facility. So we get ready for a transition every day, which is a great thing to go through for them. They have to get ready twice a morning, so they're getting even more practice at it. We travel to that internship department. They start their first shift at 10 o'clock and go to about 11:45. They then have lunch in the cafeteria, or they have lunch in the break room with the rest of their coworkers. At 12:35, we resume work till about 2 o'clock. And then the end of the day is an important time where we reflect on how the day has went each day in the beginning, and then weekly at the end, we start to do an actual reflection that we send to everybody on their support team. Next. The timelines for candidates. Applications are due about February. The reason that we try to get applications in early is it takes an amount of time to get set up with DVR, to get set up with long-term care if they have to, and then arrange transportation and do all the things necessary so that they can start on time. Typically, the end of March, beginning of March, we have an assessment day in which they go through 10 different stations to evaluate where they're at and where we can place them, and if it seems like a good fit to be in the program. Acceptance letters go out the end of March, and then we have some events throughout the summer, onboarding day, a social event, so that the interns can get to meet the team and feel comfortable when they start. Next slide, please. Eligibility guidelines, and this is something that if you need to get a hold of us, either in myself in Rhinelander or Katie in Wausau, need to be 18 years old, and you need to have appropriate hygiene, social communication skills, ability to take direction and change behavior, access to transportation, ability to pass a background check and fulfill health requirements, and most importantly, the desire to work. Next. So there's my contact information. Basically, I will try to reach out to most directors of learning support and let them know about Project Search. Being in the area for about 6 years, the program is well known in some districts, but a little bit unfamiliar in some of the other ones. So we're trying to do as much marketing as we can to get that message across. Beginning in November, we're going to have 1 day a month where if any school districts or long-term care wants to come and tour and see what it's about during the day, we're going to invite them to do that. But the best thing to do is to just reach out to myself or Katie Aiello for the Wausau area. If you need contact information, let me know. But basically, this has been a great program for those that want to get a good start post high school or come back in and get some advantages and some direction and training to become more independent and seek out some gainful employment. So with all that said, I guess I'll open it up to questions if anybody has any.
How many people in Project Search this year?
We have 7 this year. We did start out with 9. One of them had a medication issue in which they could not get that stabilized. And we would hope that they are going to do that for next year. They have put in their bid to say that they want to be a part of it next year. But with this medication change, the family felt it most important to hold back for another year. And then another one, it just didn't work out with the distance and the long day. They were coming from too far away to make it reasonable. It would have been a tough day for me. But we have 7 this year. We had 7 last year. Our maximum is about 12. And basically that is just due to there's a number of rotations within the hospital, but it's appropriate for us to only have enough interns, provided that there's enough work for them to do during the day. So 12 is about the max. 6 and 7 has been the average in the Northwoods. But we definitely have a lot in the funnel of people that are anticipating coming in. But right now, 7.
Any other question? I'm not seeing any, but thank you so much for joining us, Rod. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'd love to hear from some of the other districts. If you need testimonials, We have plenty of interns that have graduated through the program and are doing great. And they probably speak the best for, you know, to tell their story about what the program did for them. So, but please reach out. My contact info is there. I am sorry that I could not be in person today, but we had a couple interns that were just starting their first day of rotations. So we had to get them rolling. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so next, Brooke and I were actually in Antigo talking with Michelle about a completely different program, but it was work-based learning related. And then we got to talking about, well, we've got these students out at Goodwill and Brian is this great partner. And we're like, well, we're doing this workshop today on work-based learning for students with disabilities. It would be great to have you as part of it. So that is how we have Michelle and Brian joining us this morning. So come on up.
I have to say, ironically, Brian and I have been talking, and Brian has been working with Project Search. He's their new partner, so he's met Rod and he's taking care of all that with Rod. So I'm Michelle Arlen. I'm the transition coordinator in Antigo. I'm actually in the classroom, one class period a day. First semester, I teach peers curriculum, social skills, and second semester, I teach transition where we work on virtual resumes, what opportunities there are, and they leave with a 3-ring binder that they can take with them for any classes they have. Or parents ask a lot of questions, you know, they don't want to apply for DVR, but we give them the hardcover, and then parents can look at that with the kids after the case. So,
Brian Pond, I work for Goodwill on the mission services team. I support 6 stores, including Antigo, Rhinelander, Point Clover, Wapaka, Wisconsin Rapids on the mission work. So I work closely with the schools on their school to work program, and then any temporary work experiences in those communities as well.
go ahead. Just to start out, some of our funding and where we've gone. Since I've been the transition coordinator, my boss, I kind of went to her and I said, can I do the indicator 14 funds myself? Because I thought it was really important I want feedback from past graduates and what can we do at our school to help? And she's like, are you sure you want to do that? I go, absolutely. So I reached out to a lot of kids, and I think I get a better result than if we hire St. Norbert's to do it. I just think it was so much better that we came on and did it. So one of the big things we found, obviously, in our transportation is as we already talked about, is transportation. So we applied for the grant, and unfortunately it took 2 years because of COVID, but our van finally came this year, and we were able to hold on to our grant that we received over 2 years ago to get our funding. So therefore we do have our own van that we work through right now. So that's kind of nice. And we've involved our partnership with NTC. So right now, those are a couple big things where, and I'll go in and talk a little bit further about those as we go. But if you want to go on with the next slide.
I was trying to get the pictures out of your way, but it's just going to be in the way, I guess.
It's okay. And what we were really proud of is I was on a meeting last spring, and a part of our workforce development is we are doing very well compared to a lot of the other state with placing students with jobs outside of high school. So, you know, we have a lot of students that choose not to go on to college, but through our Indicator 14 funds, this is where we came into play, and Antigo and Langley County. And we actually do, which you'll see a lot of partnering with White Lake, Elko, Bowler's involved now. But our whole county is doing very well as far as getting students to work with that 20 hours a week, competitive employment. So that was just an added feature for us. This is where Brian can go on and explain a little bit more. I think our second year at Goodwill, Brian really wasn't quite on board at this point yet, but we were doing such great things in Antigo that we were chosen as a site to present this check. You want to talk?
Yep. So the AT&T had donated, I think it was $1,000 to the Goodwill, $10,000 to Goodwill to put into the school to work program. So It's cut off right here, but our CEO is right behind the bar here. There he is. They came to Anago, I think it was 2019, so this is before I was in the role and pre-COVID. But the Anago School to Work program with Goodwill has been super successful. So they came and presented the check at the Anago store. So those funds were put back into the school to work program throughout the territory.
It was quite a big deal for us because like you said, the CEO from Goodwill was here, our mayor showed up. The news came and interviewed after the fact because they missed the actual event, I guess. So, you know, that goes. But that became, I think that was like our big, they really saw something with what we were doing in Anago and it became even bigger at that point. So if we go on to our next slide, our Goodwill partnership, we start every year in the spring because we want to get the kids in the classroom as soon as the school year starts. So we offer maybe the third week in May, fourth week, you know, towards the end of May before school starts, because now those of you that have been involved, it is not always easy because students don't have the correct credentials to be employed. So it is kind of a battle, but we get the kids, you know, Social Security, all this, try and get the parents on board. And then we have an open house. Go ahead and click on the open house, Brian. Do you want to kind of step a little bit through the
Sure.
open house of what we do?
We
started at the beginning.
Every school to work program throughout our territory is different, but what Michelle and I have done is we've decided to meet in, I think it was late May or early June, just so that we can get kind of the paperwork aspect of it done. We can look at the dreaded I-9 IDs, which can be a pain to try to get everyone on board with that. So we can get everything set up. But the opportunities with the program, they do have a classroom instruction in certain programs, and Michelle's is every Wednesday. So they come to the store and they do a classroom session. Hands-on experiences, of course, at Goodwill, and then transferable skills. So in Goodwill, not all of our jobs are going to be transferable out into the public. So we have like the donation door and sorting and pulling and merchandising, and some of them are. So we do offer cashier training, and then some of the soft skills that you would need to work in any retail establishment. And then of course, job skill practice. We do mock interviews. And a whole lot more. So
this is the slideshow. Can I back up one slide? This is the slideshow. We show the families because a lot of families are very nervous about having their kids do something like this. So
obviously Michelle and then our job coach. You can keep going. And then that's Ann. She's our store team leader at the store. So we work really closely with her and her leadership team to work and to get the students jobs at the store. So they're doing all kinds of different things throughout the day. They rotate them. So they're not just doing the same thing through the entire program. So they'll start at the donation door, they'll start at the registers, or they'll start in merchandising or pulling, just all kinds of different jobs. And then they rotate throughout the year. So if a student really likes something, then we try to get them into it a little bit more. It just depends on what the student wants to do. And we try to be flexible with Michelle and her team.
absolutely. And the project search, like they do 10-week sessions, we try to stick to 1 month. Because it takes the kids a little while to click in, and then some of them can't handle the rotation that we've given them. So we sometimes back out, or we try and do it for 15 minutes and then back off. And then Angie's the other lady here, and she's actually the job coach out of White Lake, because I was involved in a PLC and our CCOT, and we've brought on board some other schools as well. So
What age group is this?
they have to be 16.
16.
That's Goodwill's requirement. Unfortunately, there's a couple 15-year-olds we really wanted to get going with it, but we wanted to go as early as, we at the high school are now 8 through 12. So we have a couple opportunities for 8th graders that I'll explain coming up.
And a lot of that's the work environment. So it's kind of warehouse.
And when they do the rotation, like how long is it that they're on a rotation? Is it weeks?
We try and do a rotation for a month. And we keep them in that rotation. And then Anne actually put another store lead kind of in charge of the school to work program per se, because she's the whole manager. And then Dee, I think, is it Dee?
Yep.
No, Joni.
I think it's Joe this year.
Joe, yeah, Joe is the person that will get an email the last week in September, first week in October. And we'll say, okay, this is where we're at for the next month. And this is, and then she puts all of our students. Our program has gotten so big, we have 12 participants there now. So we do an AM program and a PM program. And this is where Goodwill has been, and Brian have been phenomenal, because we counted and we're just like, do we turn kids away? Or ran to Brian and I said, do you have a problem with an AM and a PM? He's like, sure, whatever it takes. Goodwill has been, we have been so lucky to have the partnerships that we have. And when Brian came on board, my first thought was, oh no, not another one, because I think we were through like 3 or 4 as I started my job, but Brian has been here since I said, oh no, are we not another one? So it's been awesome. And Brian's like, sure, we'll give it a try. I mean, everything we have brought to Goodwill and Brian or Ann, they're like, sure, we'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, well, then we'll go back to the drawing boards. So and I think kudos to Goodwill and allowing us to do those things have really, like, I just got a text message while I was here, like, it's homecoming week, we're in pajamas. I said, okay, go to work, and maybe Goodwill will embellish our dress up week, and maybe they'll all, because they dress up for Halloween week and those kind of things and invite us. So we said, let's just give them a flyer and maybe they'll say their crew can dress up this week. Brian doesn't know that because it just happened.
Don't put them on the spot at all.
The whole community embellishes. But I mean, that's the kind of working relationship we have with them. But my job coach was like, oh my God, we have kids in shorts and lounge pants and dress up week today. And I'm thinking I could have been in the pajamas too. But so those are the kind of working relationships that we have through our Goodwill program with them.
And every program is different. So if you don't want a rotation and you have a student that's interested, I have stores that they do kind of the same thing, because that's what they want to focus on, to build kind of repetition in a job. So it just kind of depends on what the school is looking for, what we can provide.
And then this is our classroom instruction. Goodwill does have a classroom, and in their classroom, they've given it to us to utilize what we want. They use it for their training as well. And if you actually look at some of the tables, here they're working with money and identifying money within the classroom. And we do that on Wednesdays. We could stay at our school, but we are trying to teach the kids that this is your work site, and we go to their classroom on that day just because that's where they're getting their instruction. This is donations portion, and this is where Brian had talked about some soft skills. This is really cool because our kids are really nervous to go out as people come in and ask them, would you like a donation form? I mean, that's huge for the kids.
Yeah.
So you can add.
Well, they will go out to the car, take the donations, and we do have a list of things we can't take. So, it's talking to the customer about why we can't take it. And then if it gets, where they can't answer the question, to know to call that leader over for support, or the other team members there. So they're not by themselves. They have a Goodwill team member with them to help bring in those donations. And they're writing out receipts. So we will hand out receipts if someone wants them, customer service, obviously. And then we do have them sort. So we have against the wall, and you can kind of see it here. We have big bins where they'll take the items from the rolling carts, and then they'll sort them into the different bins. They're not looking for quality. They're just looking for the items, what they are. So but they can recognize trash. So if there's garbage, they can throw it away. But like they'll separate it into clothes and books and glass and wares and shoes right along the wall there.
By the way, that's what's fun. Everybody wants to work because that's
donations. Merchandising. Merchandising is basically putting items out on the floor. So we have someone here who is putting shoes away or pulling so they can pull it off. So we have a 5-color rotation at Goodwill where every week we're pulling off a certain color to make room for the new stuff. So they're going through and looking for like the yellow tags. They would pull that off. Sorting in the back room. We do have a section of new goods where the tickets come in with the box of new goods, and they'll price the new goods that way. Teamwork, obviously, there's just a lot of different things, putting Christmas trees together, which is one of the worst things you can do. It's awful. And then even things like putting foam on hangers is important. But yeah, so just lots of different things that we have them do. So there's the regular things like donations, but then there's this kind of the extra stuff where you have to kind of work together to figure it out. Our teamwork with other team members, that's Randy. He's one of our donation attendants, and Anago, who works with the kids at the donation door. So he's probably going over, okay, where is this? Where does this go?
And actually, the middle young man there is employed full-time, and I'll talk a little bit about
Okay.
that.
Other jobs, donation facing, so bringing things forward, building displays, polling, as we talked about, and then pricing. We do offer cashiering, and this is relatively new. So obviously our registers are not going to be like a Walmart or whatever other retail place that you have, but we can offer that experience of working live with money and customers. We have a trainer. It's either a leader or a very good cashier who's been there a while, and they can actually go through the cashiering and teach the skill of cashiering. And then mock interviews we've done in the past. I don't think we didn't do it last year,
We
but I
didn't
think,
get it last year.
yeah. But so that's one of the older store team leaders before Ann was there, and she would sit down and do mock interviews with the students. Do you want to talk about class?
So the two components that we really have is basically summing up. The big thing is these are paid experiences. They are employed through Goodwill. Brian and I both went through some major changes last year, and he is on my speed dial because they went
To Paycom. So we have everything, all of our applications and our time cards are done online now. So
and it
another.
was a nightmare.
Was
To
it?
say the least.
Okay.
It was a nightmare. Okay, you're not gonna deny that it wasn't a nightmare.
The first year was bad, yeah.
We're talking about students with disabilities trying to figure out, remember their code, and every time they had their 5 security questions. So we went in and honest to God, we gave everybody this. We gave them like their birthdays, all 5 security questions, the same answers, but we had to live and learn because at
Yep.
first, they got their phone number, but they gave us their parents' phone number. And then they had to get into their security with their parents' phone number. So then we're trying to call their parents to say, we only have 10 minutes to do this, but then our phone at school, we can't get rung in the classroom. So then they're trying to call us back and we couldn't call us. And this wasn't a daily nightmare. This was,
So
we've gotten a lot worked out.
yeah, so this year went much smoother because we kind of learned how the system worked a lot better. So it's a lot of those skills that they have to learn how to punch in, punch out at the little kiosk, and they also have to okay their time cards every 2 weeks too.
And this was reality because when you do it, this was a new reality for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this what the world is going to? So that was really difficult, but we've gotten better. We have gotten better. But the kids, when we go out there on the Wednesdays in the classroom, it is a non-paid Wednesday. So the kids, but they're getting all the instruction and role modeling, and Annie will come in if we want to talk about a specific thing. I don't know where that came from, but Goodwill has been so good about adding some of those. We added requirements, so it's going to come up. I keep jumping ahead, so go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, that's the end.
That's the end of that slide.
All right.
And then if we go back to. Nope.
Nope, wrong slide. Oh,
You just have a view up there.
That one's
There you
we
go.
go. This is where we go back to. So Brian and I sit down, we'll meet once a month. We'll add Annie to it. Sometimes our meetings are 10 minutes, sometimes they're a half hour. If they see things coming up that we need to change on our end, if we have questions or comments to transfer, that's we just touch base, and that's what's important to us. I went to them and I said, we really, really want to teach our kids the correct job skills. So we offered a summer school program this last year because we had ESSER funds, which was really cool. But we went to Brian and I said, Brian, is there any way you guys can get us t-shirts? Because we want the kids to dress for work. So I was given a classroom at school as our independent house right now. We're hoping sometime to be off-site, but right now they gave us a classroom. So, they have fingernail brushes, toothbrushes, combs, deodorant, because these are things that we work with. And if we notice we're struggling with a kid with maybe a hygiene problem, we'll go up to Annie and say, we need to talk to this kid because it's not working on our end. So we team really good that way, where they'll come in and give us instruction on areas we need. Goodwill doesn't, we require our students to call in because we're a training program that we've beefed it up on our end, and they've owned it and said, okay, so if a kid is not in school that day, they're required to call Goodwill. If they don't, we tell them, can you pull so-and-so aside? We didn't talk to them, or they didn't call in, and we work it that way. So we're trying to handle it as the most real experience as possible. So it's really good that way. So with our Goodwill partnership, Brian jumped on board and he became part of our PLC, and he was a guest speaker, and I was asked to join, even though they're not in our cohort. White Lake, Elko, and Bowler have a cohort, and they asked us to join that. So with that partnership, Brian came and presented, and now they have somebody working in Shawano through Bowler. So do you want to add to that at all, or?
I don't have the Shawano store anymore, but they were able to meet with the person who works in Shawano and then start a new relationship with that school and get participants over in that program too.
So that was successful for, both stores as well. Then our customer care credit, we have a tech program going on right now. And again, they worked us through Goodwill, where students are getting prior credit through the NTC for working at our Goodwill program. And I'll hit the classes that we're doing there through that in a minute. But you want to add anything? I think we got all the rest of it covered, right? Okay.
How did I do that?
That's okay. It's all good. I think you got to go to the other way. One more right there. Yep. And then the next one.
Why does it?
Are you on the slideshow?
I'm in, well, I'll just do this. How about that?
There you go. Okay, so here's what I talked about, our local partnerships and what we held, but being a part of the PLC now, aside from Goodwill, we've offered, I think we work with Deb Wall. Is she CESA 9 or 8?
8. Well,
Okay, so Deb joins in.
she's actually she's statewide now.
She's okay.
Yeah.
Well, Deb runs the PLC that I had joined, and they come to Antigo, and we've done the Amazing Race, and we've done tech tours where the kids got to go to the NTC here. So through that local partnership, I figure if I'm doing something in Antigo, I really want to include them all. Why would I segregate it myself when we have so much more to offer? So that's been a really good team and a good partnership through the 3 schools there. So.
And I can tell you, Michelle, I live in White Lake, and they speak very highly of the partnership that they have with Goodwill. And
Good.
So thank you for extending that offer.
Yes. Thank you. So here we are today. Here's a picture of our van. We just got the decals on it this week yet, but we have our 2 groups going to Goodwill twice a day. We're utilizing the van for other work experiences as well, which brings us into our web backpack program, which is another phenomenal experience that we have going back one. Oh, wait, is this what? Okay, sorry, you went to, is that the next one, right?
This is the next one, your passage.
Okay, which is fine. I can do it this way too.
Okay.
So I should have brought some flyers. We started a passage program, and it's programs to assist students shift to adult goals and education. So through the partnership that we had with Goodwill, we began our 18 to 21 program, or 18 Beyond program is what we're calling it now. Which we created the independent living space at the high school to support the whole child in their transition. We've really done some cooking, like one of the kids are so excited, they make eggs like 3 times a week because they learned how to make it in our program. It's something simple. So then I met with the NTC to partnership, and I'll tell you, NTC is a really good partner. I sat around a table, I think there were 25 of us, and they said, what are you looking for? And I had my boss with me, and I said, what do you have to offer? This is where we have, after the PTPs, we had a couple kids interested in cooking. We had a lot of kids that really thought they wanted to go and be a cashier or do customer care. So we sat down and we started out with a customer care class. So the second semester, NTC comes to Antigo. We include White Lake in our partnership. We include Elko, but right now Elko's had some transfers. So we still try to involve them in anything we do because we want to, but they're also part of Nicolay. So NTC, if we do offer something and somebody from Elko wants to come, NTC will reach out to Nicolay as a courtesy, but they're part of the PLC. So we offer a customer care class. We've offered that 2 years now. They make a huge deal out of it. An instructor comes, they go through some basic things. They go out to the tech. We wanted to make the school experience as real as possible so we could eat there. You know, the kids would get a packed lunch from the high school. We told the high school, this is how many kids need their packed lunch. The gentleman from Elko came in with his packed lunch. They ate lunch. We just sat off to the side because it was important to interact like you're in a college setting. And NTC offered that. And then we did, they went to the classroom, and then we still went to Goodwill besides that. So we started out at the tech for 1 hour. Then they jumped on the bus, and during the second semester, we changed the time at Goodwill. Again, they were saying, okay, if that works for you, come on in at a different time. So we finished up with that partnership as well. So then this last year, we added a culinary program because I had a couple kids that really wanted to work and be a baker or a chef and want to work in a kitchen. So Chef John from the tech came, we had a schedule all arranged. He converted one of the classrooms at NTC in Antigo into a makeshift kitchen. And then 3 times we went over and worked in the kitchen over there where we jumped on the school bus is what we did. But we had it worked out again with White Lake, where White Lake came to us. We jumped on the bus instead of both of us busing over. And we're going to offer both those classes again this year. And we're in the talks to adding an auto or detailing class for the kids the next year. Yeah.
Is this the Wausau culinary?
Yep.
That's it.
Right.
But they're in Antigo. So Chef John comes to Antigo. I think he came to Antigo 4 times. And then we went to him 3, and they were 2-hour bouts because we made it in the afternoon. So, I mean, he would bring his fancy knives. He brought, and the kids all got to bring this food home. So they learned kitchen cutting and knife safety and how do you clean up after that. We were in a chem lab is what we were in, but he makeshifted it into, he brought the cutting boards and did it that way. So, and it was just, it's awesome what the tech is willing to step in and do, and don't take it from us. Only because he made a comment saying, oh, did you get on the list for next year? Because we're already here now. And I'm like, no, you're here. So, but they have been, like I said, they don't have an autos in Antigo anymore. But when I talked to, I think his name was John, when I talked to him, he's like, oh, we're in the middle of redeveloping the curriculum over here. And I said, even a detailing class, because kids that like autos might not be able to handle a full-blown mechanic job, but yet let's start with detail. You're going to pick up a rag on the ground and scratch a car up because it's got rocks on the rag, to step through those kind of things. So that's kind of in the works to offer, not this spring, but hopefully next spring. I always shoot for the second semester of the year because tech classes start right away. Our kids are not always in gear right away to jump into something. So, and maybe it will be in that realm. I'm not sure. So, okay, so the next one, I think I'm about done. So in our partnership, we also have the web backpack program. And I think this is the coolest program that's an unpaid experience. So we take even some 8th graders out here, we pull them from the classroom, and I don't know if your schools have a web backpack program, free food for kids.
For the weekend.
For the weekend, yeah, okay. So we now are in charge of, they would always ask for volunteers, and I'm not quite sure how this came about, but I attended a web backpack meeting and I'm like, I was volunteering out there once and I'm like, this is a job our kids could do. So I met with them and they're like, really? You really want to do that? I'm like, yes, because if we're fixing 450 backpacks, our kids now have to take, if they each get a granola bar and, I got to create a granola bars, how many boxes do we have to open? After the boxes that we have to open, so how many individual ones, because we wanted to have just enough in our bins so people can just walk through, put them in the backpack, and then that backpack is done. So we got involved with that. So actually, they want us to basically own the web backpack, and the hospital just gave us a grant because we are actually housed out of the food pantry, but they created a room for us this year. I haven't even been out to it yet because it starts in mid-October, a room off the side. So we originally had one pallet way high. And all we did was walk in, and it took us 20 minutes to organize and 10 minutes to put away. And then we came in the next day to organize, and we only had 1 hour because that's how our transportation worked. So now this year, we're going to be able to go and have our own room and lay it out and work on these job skills with the kids. And we're going to start taking them as early as 8th grade, because we have some students that we were very, I want to say nervous about putting in public, because if we're because the year before he was stocking shelves at Cox and decided that he really didn't want any of the paper chip bags anymore and banged them together and crushed them, and we have potato chips all over. So what a perfect opportunity for students that were not sure they're ready to go out in the community to go in our own private place off to the side. So we meet once a month for Web Backpack. I meet with the hospital. They got that grant going. So we are going to do everything the only thing the community has to do right now is come in with their volunteers and pack the bags, because we didn't have enough time to do the packing. And our goal is by January 1st for us to be able to solely own it. But they will do the ordering of the food and stuff for us.
So how much time do you spend there?
We were at Web Backpack, we were spending at least an hour a day. Our bus would drop us off at the food pantry before Avaya. They would drop us at the food pantry. They would go to work at Goodwill. Then they would come back and pick us up. And then we'd all go back to the school. So we were gone about an hour and 15 minutes in that area per se. And we were transportationless at that point, but we were also they put us in the pantry when nobody else was in the pantry. But if we needed it, we knew we could get the bus. It was, 3 blocks away. We're pretty close to Goodwill. So
And you do that every day?
we did that 3 days a week because the pantry delivery, then they would take the backpacks on Thursdays to the schools for pickup on Fridays. So we had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to do it. So this year, now that we have our own space, we're going to be able to probably pack them as well. And we're pulling the kids from the classroom at that point. We talk about, we're all in inclusive communities, but what's more important at this point, this job skill or getting the history lesson for the day?
And is this 16 and up too?
We're taking kids as early as 8th grade. We can take a different group. We don't have to take the same group every day, depending on what skill we're working on. In the end, they were all begging to go. I mean, this was a group of 5, I think, in this picture that we had. And some of them they break down cardboard boxes, they take out the garbage. They, it's all counting. We utilize the calculator. Let's figure this out. And some of them were just really fluid to the end, and they could this is how many you need. And some of them just hadn't picked it up yet. So I think, yeah. Any other questions?
So then for those younger kids, your district is supportive of kind of foregoing the standards for science and social studies and English and things like that for the work-based experience?
Yep, absolutely. We tried to take the kids, some of the kids in the ID program would go all 3 days, but then we would try to take some of the higher functioning, but yet we knew they needed the skills and take them 1 day. So they would go every Tuesday. And then that conversation was with the teacher. What do we need to cover outside the classroom with that student? And 9 times out of 10, they would be like, okay, this part's exempt or totally exempt, but then I want them to cover this. So the teachers are just unbelievably workable from that situation because everybody sees the need.
So I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
First off, does WASA have a Brian?
Yes. He's better. His name is Tim.
I don't know if anybody's got it,
His name
right?
is Tim Wabernick. He is in the same position that I am in, and he covers the Wassa and Rim Mountain stores. And I can get you his contact information.
Sure. Great. And then, so how many hours? You have 2 groups going to Goodwill. How many hours are they at Goodwill? And how many days a week?
So right now we're going, they get paid 4 hours a week on the floor and then 1 hour in the classroom. We do have a young lady where we already addressed it and we're going to get unique, where we're taking this one young lady and part of her transition plan is to work. She was actually going to be a project search candidate and we went, there's no way this young lady can work for 6 hours. Her attention span just isn't there. So I just stepped back and I went, well, that's my job. Hello. So I talked to Brian and we're going to get her hopefully by the end of the first quarter. We're going to work with her an hour and she's going to stay in Goodwill for a half hour. Then we're hoping to work it up to 3 hours where she's with us for an hour. And then she's going to continue working at Goodwill on her own, you know, with the job coaches. So that's just part of the transition that we have working with that young lady. Like I said, Goodwill's really good. Goodwill, I call them, they're kind of lucky because they typically do not employ any of the people at their training center. But we have I say, he doesn't, I say we have a try it before you buy it. So we currently have 2 students that were in a Goodwill program working full-time that went through our program that they even said, hey, you can fill out an application. And we have another one that two more working part-time.
Part-time.
So that have gone through our program in the last couple of years. So it's kind of cool because we go there, we see these students and now they're the actual employees working with our kids. So it's really cool as far as that goes.
And every school system is different. So just because
Yeah.
Anago works 2 shifts, an hour and 15 minutes. Like my Stevens Point, they only work 1 class period, so it's less than an hour, just based on transportation and the school schedule. It just depends on what the school is able to do, but generally for Goodwill, we'll take whatever. So
Did you say you'll do Marshfield also, or is?
I don't do Marshfield, but I have another person who handles the Marshfield store. Her name is Kira. And I think she's working with one of the Marshfield schools. So, yeah. So for example, like I work in the Wisconsin Rapids, so I work with Lincoln High School, has a program similar to Anago, who brings kids, who selects the kids. They generally have disabilities. They come in and work different schedules. They're working like 9 to 11. That's their schedule. But we also have a partnership with River Cities, which is the alternative school in Wisconsin Rapids. Their kids, our school program, school to work program, they need hours at a work location to graduate. So while they may not have a traditional disability, they're able to come in, work shifts in order to collect those hours to graduate. So every program looks different throughout the company.
Brian, I have a follow-up question.
Yep.
Would Goodwill ever consider doing youth apprenticeship for maybe students that start out in a program like Michelle has, and then kind of ramping into maybe their senior year, or even if they're 18 to 21?
That is a good question for someone that's not me.
Okay.
I can absolutely, we'll consider chatting about whatever is out there.
Mhm,
So that's one of the things that we are trying to do, is spread our wings outside the valley,
mhm.
right? Because that's where we're focused. So Project Search in Rhinelander is a good example of us trying to get out into the community, because we serve the 35 counties, and a lot of the last 20 years of Goodwill has been focused directly in the valley. So yes, that would be something that I would have you meet with someone a little higher up the chain than me, but we could certainly
Okay.
at least address it for sure.
Thank you.
All right.
I love
Well,
that.
thank you so much. Great
No problem.
information. We are at just about 10:10. So rather than jump right into Deborah Ramsey, because we've been talking a lot about DVR, so Deborah's going to answer all of our questions about DVR, but I'd like to give you just a 5-minute restroom break. Restrooms are right across the hall, so we will pick up with Deborah at 10:15.
Sounds good.
All right.
Can you pause that?
Okay. No, I'm stuck to the chair.
Remember where you showed me?
I stopped it. No, I don't want to stop it.
Cancel.
Yep, the whole folder.
Okay, pause it. It stopped.
There we go. All right. So we've been talking through these presentations about DVR and how DVR can be part of the work of helping our students with disabilities be successful in the work world. And so that's exactly what we are going to be talking about next. So we have Deborah Ramsey with us, and she is going to be telling us how DVR can be part of these transition services. And I'm going to turn this around so that she can see the audience as she's speaking. All right, Deborah.
Hello. Excuse me. I'm Deborah Celia Ramsey. I'm from the Rylander DVR office. We cover Vilas County, Oneida, Forest, Langlade, and part of Lincoln County. So those are, and then all the schools that are within those counties. So we can go to the next slide. So the learning targets that DVR would like to share is to understand our referral and application process, learn about the eligibility criteria, discuss DVR's transition services, share tools and best practices for successful student transition, and then just address any questions that you may have. Next slide. So I gotta move myself out of here so I can see what I'm looking at. Okay. So DVR is a state agency. We're here to look at developing occupational talent of individuals with disabilities. Our funding is through federal dollars, but there's a state match, and it has the percentage there. Our mission is to assist individuals with disabilities in obtaining, maintaining, or improving employment. So somebody could be working and want to advance into something, with a higher wage. So that's where the advancement comes in. So referral and application process, we're looking at high school students with a disability applying to DVR at least 2 years before completing high school. For those that are 18 or those over 18 who are not their own guardian, DVR looks at the legal guardian signing off on all documents. Referral can be done online, by mail, or in person. So somebody could call and we can send an application or a referral form to them. Next slide. So who is eligible for DVR? To be eligible for our services, there has to be a documented medical or psychological disability that presents a barrier to employment and the person requires DVR services. DVR staff will work with the applicant to gather the necessary documentation and information. We have individual signed releases so we can obtain medical records, school records, anything that's going to help us with the individual as far as what their disability is and looking at what their strengths, limitations are. So we'll schedule a meeting to discuss the applicant's disability and needs. We share information with them as far as what DVR is. Like I said, we use existing information as much as possible. So if we don't have information, then we'd be referring the individual to, say if somebody's saying they have a learning disability and never been documented, we may refer them to a psychologist to get that documentation. Next slide. So when somebody is eligible for our services, then we go into what we call the order of selection, and we just call it OOS. This is where we're looking at the individuals, the different areas. So we're looking at mobility, communication, self-care, self-direction, interpersonal skills and acceptance, work tolerance, work skills. What we're looking here is are any of these areas are serious. This is going to be based on any information the individual is sharing with us, a parent, a guardian, medical documentation. So it helps us determine if any of these areas are serious. So the order selection is really DVR, what we call DVR's waiting list. So we have 3 categories, which are not listed here. So there's category 1, 2, and 3. By federal law, DVR is required to serve the most serious limitations individual first that has the most serious limitations, and that would be category 2. And we have category 3 or 2. And then 3 is really where the waiting list is. And right now, DVR, actually people that go into category 3 are actually coming off the waiting list in a very short period of time. So really right now, everybody's being served by DVR. Next slide. So before we get into what does transition look like, there was a question in regards to age. So I just want to share a little bit of information about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, so WIA. So with WIA, it reinforces the ongoing interagency collaboration between DVR and schools to serve youth in transition. So they establish new definitions. So students with disabilities attending or enrolled in high school or an educational program, they're looking at the ages of 14 to 21. So youth with disabilities would be 14 to 24. So those are some new definitions that have been established. So this is not in the slide. Probably another important thing is DVR must spend 15% of our annual funding allotment on pre-employment transition services, so PREETs, for students ages 14 to 21. So we are required to provide that funding. Some other things with WIOA is the collaboration with DVR is really important. Working with DVR and the transition of our students while they are still in school. So schools must collaborate with DVR to provide and document PREETs for students with disabilities in high school or in a post-secondary education program, so the 14 to 21. DVR and schools will continue to outreach to parents and students, referring students that at least that 2 years prior. So in each school has a liaison that's been assigned to the school. So I'm not sure if anyone out there is in our area, but I cover Lakeland Union, Northern Pines, Tomahawk, and Phelps. And then we have 2 other counselors that cover all the other schools that are in our area. So next slide, what does transition look like? So key practices for transition, invite us to IEPs. We're always willing to come if it fits in our schedule, or allow DVR to provide technical assistance for students with disabilities. So even if you're not ready to make a referral, invite us to an IEP. We can provide information to parents. Offer employment planning consultation through DVR, which may be provided for any student with a disability. So any student, so it doesn't have to be somebody it could be somebody with a 504 plan. So it's really important to try to get those students connected with DVR, and then schedule and attend regular meetings with the high school. So just, contact us. We're more than willing to come to the school or just sit down and talk. Next slide. Schedule a meeting with DVR teachers and other school staff at the start of the school year to provide updates about DVR and share all necessary contact information. So I believe right now the counselors are trying to reach out to contacts. I know there's a lot of changes with staff, so sometimes that can be hard as far as who to contact. We can attend parent-teacher conferences, transition fairs, open houses, similar events to provide DVR information. Next slide. So some helpful tools for transition. So these are the WIOA transition services that came out with the law that DVR in schools we should be looking at providing. So especially DVR is job exploration counseling, work-based learning experiences, counseling on comprehensive transition or post-secondary educational program, enrollment opportunities. So we'll work with students while they're still in school if they're considering post-secondary education, just trying to help them, what do you want to do? What school would you like to attend? Just trying to get them through that and make a decision prior to their exit. Work-based readiness training to develop social and independent living skills, and then instruction on self-advocacy. So we, with DVR, we can provide, like Janine had mentioned, temporary work experiences. We can do job shadows. We have programs that we can offer to the schools. Skills to pay the bills is one of them. And the other one is self-advocacy training, or just two to mention. So these are programs we can bring to the school, and we're paying for that training for, it could be a group of students. And if somebody is not able to sit in a group, it can be done as far as being individualized for them as far as one-on-one. Next slide. So DVR, employment planning and consultation services for transition services. So what are they? Next slide. So what is an IPE? So this is different than the school as far as an IEP, but ours is an individualized plan for employment. So we sit down with individuals, talked about their interests, what do they want to do? They're unsure, then that's when we may be looking at like temporary work experiences or job shadows in the community. But we're here to help a consumer develop a plan to find a job, keep a job, or get a better job. We have students that get jobs while they're in high school, but they may not be what they want to do when they exit high school. So DVR continues to work with students after they've exited high school. So, then we're getting into what we call adult services, no longer transition services. So if a student still hasn't had a job when they've left school, like I said, we'll continue to work with them until we do find employment for them. Next slide. Now, just what is DVR is about planning. And there's this quote there. So next slide. DVR, this is comparable benefits. So DVR is always looking at, is there another way to fund something? So we're always looking at comparable benefits. So example, if somebody wanted to further their education, financial aid would be considered a comparable benefit. So it's first, apply for financial aid. If you don't have enough funding, then DVR would be looking at, how can we help? When it comes to transportation, how can transportation be funded? There's other sources. If not, then DVR will be looking at, how can we help? Somebody's looking at needing a computer looking at a local computer lab somewhere that could be used like at a college, and then just cost sharing between agencies. Next slide. So our end goal is integrated employment. So this is just a definition. Integrated employment is setting that enables an individual to interact with persons without developmental disabilities to the fullest extent possible. Next slide. So successful closure. Once an individual has maintained employment for a minimum of 90 days, DVR closes the file successfully. So if it's a student, if they get a job while they're in school, DVR wouldn't be looking at closing their file at that 90-day point. We would continue to monitor them while they're still in school, and we'd be looking at, the next step after they've exited high school. So for consumers in supported employment or customized employment, this 90-day timeframe begins following the transition to long-term support. So how that works is supported employment is where somebody would have long-term care. DVR provide the funding through our funds. And then when we look at transitioning, we transition if the person's ready to be transitioned to long-term support, then that funding they would then take over the funding of the person. Closures may allow others to come off waiting lists, and then consumers can reapply for services at any time. So if we close somebody successfully today, it could be a year, 2 years, 6 months, person can reapply for our services. So it's just not a one time you have DVR and you don't get to have the services again. Next slide. And then we have staff. We call a state transition action and resource team. Those are individuals that get together, talk about transition. And then we have a transition liaison list, so that would be identifying all the counselors that cover the schools in the state. Next slide. So any questions?
Okay.
So I have, so one of the questions I have is, you know, we see a lot of students are now qualifying for special education through OHI. And I
Okay.
was wondering, like, how is that, if they're OHI, can that, you know, can they get DVR services after they're done with high school?
Yeah, they can get services. They could get services while they're in high school.
I'm sorry, say that again?
They can get services while they're in high school and when they exit high school. So DVR looks at all disabilities. Doesn't matter what the disability
So
is.
like ADHD,
Pardon me?
would, if the student has ADHD and they have, you know, graduated from high school, but they have that OHI, ADHD, does DVR still acknowledge the disability, and are they willing to work with somebody like, you know, that has just that kind of disability?
Right, DVR works with all disabilities, no matter if they're in high school or when they exit high school and they're an adult. So we look at every disability a person has.
And it has to be a medical diagnosed disability, is that correct?
Well, it can be mental health, it could be physical, it could be hearing, it could be visual. So like I said, it's every disability DVR looks at.
Okay. And then, so what is happening now with workshops?
With workshops, well, a lot of them are, I think a lot of these workshops are going away from the workshop model and they're doing more pre-vocational. Let me look, I think I have, it's not part of this slide, but let me just look. I think we had some, I just had something here I thought I seen. We, DVR doesn't support placement in workshops. That's not integrated employment.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Like a sheltered workshop, they used to call them
Yeah,
sheltered.
we don't support placement in sheltered workshops because that's not integrated employment. But if there's individuals that are in, say, the workshop and are looking at wanting to find a job in the community and are referred to us, we will work with them.
Right.
Can you tell me who the DVR counselor is that supports Antigo now?
That would be Natalia Graff.
So Natalia is still the DVR counselor.
Yep.
Other questions?
Oh, here, I just found it. Okay, DVR is annually required to provide information to individuals earning sub-minimum wage about available vocational rehabilitation resources. Employed individuals earning sub-minimum wage prior to 2016 may choose to remain in sub-minimum wage employment after participating in DVR outreach meetings. Students leaving high school cannot be immediately placed in sub-minimum wage employment. They must first apply for DVR services. So they can't go right into the workshop. They have to come to DVR first.
And if I remember correctly, they have to have a couple failed placements before
Yeah,
they can.
You're correct. We have to make an attempt.
How do we handle struggles to connect with DVR? I'll ask.
Could you hear that, Deborah? She asked, how do we handle struggles with connections with DVR?
Maybe you could kind of tell me what struggles you're having?
Well, and me personally, I didn't see eye to eye on a situation last spring, and I involved my director, and she was very blunt. So now I even had a situation that DVR was going to cover a transition service for a student, and the job coach was going to do it. And I emailed twice, and I have not once heard back from her, but she was really good last spring. So I don't know, that's why I was wondering if mine was still available, and I know Wausau has lack of connection with their DVR counselor either.
Well, I can't speak for Wausau because I'm not in that office, but if you're not connecting, you know, I don't know if I put the main contact on there, if it's just directly mine, but you can call our main number and whoever answers that can refer you to the counselor that's handling your area. And if you want, I can let that counselor know that you're trying to reach out.
I'll send her another email. If not, then I will.
Okay. And what school are you from? Because I can mention it.
I'm in Anigo.
Okay.
And you know, anything could have happened. It could have gone to her junk, get lost, but we met regularly last year. We met monthly.
And it sounds like Wausau has a similar connection issue.
Or at least.
Well, DC Everest.
DC Everest, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it depends on what's happening. I know we have had some staff leave and maybe some shuffling going on in the other two offices. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure who the counselor is for Wausau.
Well, I know sometimes you get overloaded because somebody does leave, then you're thrown to take care of somebody else. But they're going, I mean, I understand the shortage as a whole.
That's what happened in Shawano, and I was in Shawano and Oconto County, and they had just a shortage. I ended up working with somebody out of Sheboygan because they had no one.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're all
All I can say is just keep reaching out. I don't know what the situation might have been, you know, could have been a vacation and just trying to get caught. I have no idea. But like I said, and in the presentation is probably one of the things is to invite us to IEP meetings. Because that way we can share the DVR information with parents, guardians, and also make the referrals. You know, sometimes we've ran into the issue where people are thinking, oh, this person is not going to be eligible for DVR services. But DVR is the one that should be making that decision as far as whether someone's eligible or not for our services.
Deborah, are there still potentially eligible services?
Yes, there is.
So, and can you explain that a little bit? I don't know enough. I have not done potentially eligible because my students apply for services. Potentially eligible is the individuals come into DVR and get certain services without making an application to DVR. So for an example, they can do like the skills to pay the bills. I'm just offhand trying to think of what other ones there are. I had kids with skills to pay the bills without going through the entire application process. So the whole class could take the course, even though not all of them were DVR.
Right. However, if an individual needed like systematic instruction, like job coaching, that would not be a service that could be provided and potentially eligible. So that's why.
Go ahead.
So that's why I say I have not done potentially eligible, because the majority, if not all my students, need systematic instruction. So they just go and they apply for DVR services.
And I do it quite opposite. I always start out with my kids as potentially eligible, then they're already in the computer system and they do the skills to pay the bills or the self-advocacy class. Typically I've done it through MILK. And then that's kind of like their foot in the door. And I tell the parents, now this is the potentially eligible. Now you need to go through and do the actual application. And it seems to be a better fit that I can get parents to do that through.
Because the application is quite a process.
Yeah.
But now they've been introduced to it, so it's not quite so scary.
Correct.
Well, there would be a delay then in services. If you go right into the system, we can go from skills that pay the bills right into something else. Yeah, I can see that, and I think Natalia does that at Antigo. The majority of our other schools really haven't done potentially eligible. I think maybe Rhinelander might have one.
And I think Natalia might do it that way because we were really struggling with applications. Like I've even had parents come in and ask me to help them fill out the application. So they'll just show up and say, Michelle, you have somebody here? I'm like, I do. So I'll go downstairs and literally it's happened 2 or 3 times and I'm like, okay. So I sit down with the parent and actually fill out the hard copy because again, they also don't want the technology to fill it out that way. So maybe that's why Natalia does that for us. Otherwise we wouldn't, I mean, we were really struggling trying to get families to refer.
I had that same struggle with the phone call, when they get the phone call to answer the questions from the college, whatever college calls. I had so many parents that said, oh, I didn't think that was important, or I didn't recognize the number, so I didn't answer, and then eventually they get closed for not responding, and then you start over.
Well, there's a solution to that, because if the family or the student does not want to have a phone conversation with Stout, that can be done in person, on phone, via Zoom, Teams, because we use Teams. So there's another option if they don't feel comfortable having a phone call.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, but they have to identify that to us, because if not, they will be referred, because that is technically our process.
All right. Well, that looks like all the questions. Thank you so much for joining us, Deborah. We really appreciate all the information.
Sure, thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And then we have our last presenter this morning. So the PACE program is also out of Rhinelander School District. And so Marissa is here to tell us about that program.
I brought a couple things to kind of show the PACE lab.
Do you want a table up here so that you can also be by
Sure.
the camera? Because I thought that might be easy.
On the camera, next to the camera.
I'll do kind of next to it.
I'll try to make sure I'm in the camera though.
Perfect. Turn it sideways to make sure that you're resting. Because we have that up there, so we don't need to take it out.
That's true. People don't need to see it twice.
Yeah, they don't need to see the slide deck, they need to see you.
Okay. All right, so am I good?
You're good.
We're gonna move it up just a little bit because we're cutting off your head.
Or move it back. Oh, that way up. Yes. Okay.
So I'm Marissa Schumacher, just a little bit about me. So I'm actually a speech pathologist for 18 years, and I've done all ages. I have then received my cross-categorical special ed license. So I do some special ed in addition to speech. And then the last 2 years, I've been the 18 to 21 transition coordinator, planner, programmer. So I kind of do lots of many things. So then you can do the next slide. I know there's only a few of you here, but kind of let me know how much you know about PACE Lab. Like, I use it, I've heard about it, nothing. I kind of have an idea. Okay.
My district has 2 and their district has 2 labs.
Okay. Perfect. So PACE Lab, we can have the next slide. Stands for Practical Assessment Exploration System. So it is research-based, data-driven, and it is age-appropriate for transition. For us, we use the PACE Lab starting at middle school up through high school. You can restart it every year at the beginning level. You can have students continue where they were. It's kind of independent based on what they need. The way it's set up is you have it in a room. Students come in and they are essentially the employees, and the teachers are the employers. I have a couple teaching assistants that help run the lab and work with the students. So it works on some life skills, it works on some job skills. Let's see what else. You can do the next slide. So they can learn lots of different jobs. So there are, I do have this on the next slide. So there are 5 different areas of job skills, and it ranges from easy and it goes harder. It can help meet IDP transition goals. A lot of my students that are younger, we do it where they complete a task box every day. It helps provide a positive learning experience. Go to the next slide. So, oh, my one title was gone off that one slide. So there's business marketing, construction, industrial, consumer service, computer technology, and processing production. So in consumer service, it looks at, so I'll show you the front of the box just so you have an idea. So it has different labels. So this one is, I do not have them memorized. I do have to look them up every time. So this one, FD, stands for form design. So the 2 letters that are on there tells you kind of what they are. So there's on consumer service, food measurements, food preparation, kitchen appliances, food service, food weights, cloth measurement, hand sewing. A lot of the girls really like the sewing part. Machine sewing, cloth construction, housekeeping, custodial. On business, there's alphabetizing, identification filing, numerical sorting, collating, making change. There's a calculator, cash register, typing. There is a typewriter that's getting kind of outdated, as most places don't really use a typewriter anymore. And then on processing production, there's bolt assembly where you put bolts on the screws, pipe assembly, color assembly, form design, pipe design, visual perception, thread design, paper cutting, analog time, and digital time. I do find most places do not do the old style clocks. Most of them are digital now. So I mean, there are a couple things that kind of don't always line up to where we are now. On computer, there is data entry, word processing, mailing, email, information technology, information management, PowerPoint, digital photos. The construction, I did not bring a sample because I was not going to bring a saw and 2x4s. A lot of the boys really like this. You make, there's like a birdhouse that you make. There's one with plexiglass where you learn to cut plexiglass. So there are some really cool projects that they can do and ways to learn. If you go to the next slide, there is one of these for every section, and it starts out easy. All of the orange ones are level 1, and then they get harder as they go down. And when you start, you always want to start at level 1 and work your way through. You go to the next slide. This is the binder that is for each student. I just brought a blank one to show you. So here's the work procedure, and it is set up like a job where they come in, they clock in for their time. They have to get their work folder, a stopwatch, and then I have their record in here, which activities they've completed, and then they keep track of which jobs they're doing, if they like it, if they don't like it. So if we open one of the boxes, they have to get a little instruction card. So I have some lower students that aren't able to read this. So I do have to make some modifications depending on their ability levels. I have some students that can completely read this and they're expected to get the task box. And then the supplies are inside. And then they have to read it. So this one is just place the squares on the blank design grid to match the design. So there's squares and the grids and the designs. Be sure to place a square on each space on the blank design. So that's all there is for this one. So then they have to start their stopwatch, complete the task and stop it. And then on the back, there are times that are recommended for how fast they need to be able to complete them. This one is business marketing. So it is alphabetizing titles. So it will give you directions. It has all of the cards. And you would use the sorter to alphabetize them. So you can have X marks the spot. They have to find the X and put it in the X. So lots of little tools to help them with that one. I had a previous student who always wanted to work at Burger King. So this was one of his favorite tasks. And you actually learn how to wrap a hamburger. So it has little mini hamburgers and it does give you directions and kind of show you how to wrap them up. And then on the back, to complete, I don't know how many hamburgers are in here, but there are tons. It has that you can do all of these in 4 minutes, 9 seconds, all the way to 8 minutes, 19. Yeah, so that's a lot. There are quite a few in them too. And then in here, when it lists the different categories, it does tell you would do all the level ones first. There's one that is slightly different and the arrows show you where to go, but you would always start with a level 1 and then increasing in difficulty. Maybe go to the next one. I did have a student, well, I still do, but she had an intellectual disability and she completed almost all of these tasks and did a variety of job shadows, externships, and is actually working at Goodwill. I would say Brian's gonna know what I'm talking about. And is working at Goodwill pretty much independently. And then I had another student who really thought he liked doing electrical stuff, did some of the Pays Lab boxes with the instructions. Well, I should think he did not want to follow the instructions and wanted to do it his own way and they didn't work. So then once he did follow the instructions and it worked, he realized it was something he did not want to do. So it was a good way for him to kind of explore some of the different areas and determine what he liked, what he didn't like. Let's see, I'm gonna say most of our students do them. And that's kind of, I think that was the last one.
Yep.
So any specific questions?
This is obviously a program that probably costs a lot of money.
It does, yes.
And also, I would say takes up a majority, a good amount of space too as well, right?
Yeah, so I was gonna say our program, we got one of the first ones at school. We did file to get funding, which you can use ESSER dollars.
I was just gonna suggest that.
Yeah.
I bet you can.
You can use ESSER dollars. So we did request to get an upgrade because then they changed, we saw the old typewriter. So I know they upgraded it so that some of those older style things have been upgraded to newer ones. That has not been approved yet, but yes, you can use ESSER dollars.
Can you also use could you use transition money for that?
I would
Transition
think so.
improvement grant money for that? So there's a TIG grant available every spring that could also
Do you
make.
have the app, the Pays app?
No, that is part of the upgrade.
Yes.
So can you tell us what that is? Because I don't know that either.
I can't.
Oh.
I was always excited. Tell me about this app.
My
Just a
school
teaser.
district just purchased the app and they said that it works great.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I'm sorry.
Because now we know that there is one.
Just a teaser.
And it is part of the new program addition that we can get. I think the additional program was around $1,000 to add to what we had for the upgrades. No, but it's like a $40,000 program to start.
So is that instead of like the boxes and stuff or in addition?
In addition.
In addition, okay, so you still need the space.
And I mean, you still need my classroom area, so I have like a dual classroom is on the smaller side, so it is a little cramped, but we typically only have like 3 or 4 students at a time with that. I mean, you do need the space, and I do have a closet where you can lock up the tools, because if you have other people coming in, things walk off. That is one, or get messed up, or kids think it's a play space.
Is there a lot of initial setup to everything, like you have to assemble the boxes and put on the labels?
You have to do all that?
It's
For 40 grand?
It's part of the training. It's part of the training to do it. It's part of the
Yeah.
training.
Okay.
It teaches you,
Yeah.
so
Like
it's not.
what?
I would say, if you had a room, like if you close this divider, you had a room about this big, you could do it. I
Oh.
think,
The room we have is half the size.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's my room is even.
I would say though that what we found is having a sink is a big deal.
So nice.
It's a big deal to have a sink in the room.
And there are quite a few little cooking ones where you make hot chocolate with cocoa powder and dry milk. And you have a hot plate. So in my room, I do have like a little sink kitchenette area in addition, which makes
Yeah,
it nice. You can get water.
Yes, right.
Right. But part of the setup and the cost, I think, are the tables. You get tables, and you get, you can buy shelves, or you can, get your own shelves to put the boxes on.
And like the tables are standing height.
Yes.
And there are wood tables, and then there are metal tops tables.
Do you know how much you budget for that yearly after, like you said, if you have cooking stuff and have to replace the supplies, your 2x4s?
About $1,000. And I don't know that we even, last year we didn't use that much, but like there's measuring, so sugar, flour, rice.
Yeah. So we found that, like wood. So when the wood shop or tech ed shop has pieces or whatever, we'll get our wood that way, which helps.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
what we do too.
Yeah. And just, the food stuff, you just have to keep it in, you want to get containers, because if it sits there for a while, it can get bugs in it.
So I have like the Tupperware containers where they latch close, and then they're labeled. I didn't bring that one, but FM1 has measuring of sugar and flour. So they're in a sealed container for those. We've had a few tools break. It's trying to cut wire and they snap off after many years. So yeah, last year we probably replaced around $500 worth of materials.
You don't have to like, if you have some, like, let's say you have a saw break, you don't have to replace it through the pays.
Yeah. We just
You can
order on Amazon.
Replace it, right, through Amazon.
Is there any successful examples of like school districts that have worked together to offer a PACE lab?
I don't know that we've ever worked with other school districts.
I was just thinking from a volume and expense.
I'm from Stratford,
Yeah.
so we are like 850 K through 12, so we don't have the numbers of necessary students that would, use it, but go together. Yeah.
Especially if the
Well, you
cost.
would be surprised though, I mean, if you're K-12, are you all in one building?
We're right across the street from each other, so we're easy access.
Perfect. So you can do 8th grade, you can do all the way from 8th grade on up. And, depending on how many adults you have in the room, if you have one adult in the room, you can do like 5 students depending on their, how much support they need.
Well, and it doesn't have to be just for your most severe with intellectual disabilities. It can be other disabilities too, autism, other health impaired. So, you can have a big range of students using it. I don't know how far you are from different places.
We're pretty close to like Spencer, Marshfield. Marshfield's pretty big.
I would think Marshfield has one.
The salesperson is Heidi.
Yes, Johnson.
Yeah,
Johnson.
and she
I mean, I'm sure she would come out and do a you know, pitch to you. Yeah, but she does a wonderful job.
She does great trainings. She'll
Yes.
come in person and train you and any staff.
She'll figure out how to set your room up.
And would you say, so I have 2 students right now that are high school that have a lot of fine motor issues. So I'm finding it really difficult to find things for them to do because it's always like us doing it because they can't or won't, you know, with their hands. So that's kind of where I'm struggling right now with work opportunities. We kind of do the United Way Now bags, which is the food on the weekends where we get all the food and then we pack the bags for our school, whatever, and they can do, you know, the putting this in each bag type thing. You know, and try to do as much as possible. Even the cooking is hard because they don't, you know, they won't hold on to the spoon or they won't, you know, they don't have that fine motor control. You know, so it's, would you say there's a wide range of tasks or most of them require kind of fine motor skills?
I would say a lot require fine motor skills. You know, for vision and reading, I do a lot of adaptation with visuals or breaking down the steps. But I mean, you know, even with the hamburger one, even if you're prompting them, you know, you put the burger on, fold it this way, and then set them on the tray. I mean, there's putting nuts on a bolt that you have to screw them on, and they're small.
Do you have OT?
Yeah.
Do they have OT?
One of them does, yeah.
I mean, that might be something that you can work with them on. And
And we, you know, we do similar stuff. We have like nuts and bolts and, you know, different things like that. It's just to find a
wider range.
a wider range of activities. Yes, yeah.
So they don't get bored or feel
Yes, yeah, and you know, they don't really like doing those things. Like, you know, okay, yeah, it's good to get those hands working, but you know, 1 or 2 and then done. Well, that's only 5 minutes worth and
You know, and I don't know how your school's set up, but aside from the PAYS lab with uniqueness, I took for our fine motor skills student, I have a list of about 15 job skills that they can do around the building, from putting ice in a bag for the secretaries,
yeah.
that, you know, doing laundry because they can do it, but are they able to push the button? You know, I just have a whole list, but that's not anything like the PAYS lab. It's just a job skill that.
Michelle, would you share that list with us? I think the problem you're talking about is way more widespread than just you.
Yeah. I also have a kid I struggle with fine motor skills with. I mean, he has OT and everything, but I still struggle. Like, I want him to do more, and I don't know, getting him to focus for a while is also a struggle because he has about like a 5-minute attention span, and then everything's just on the floor.
And my student doesn't have, he's feeling McDermott syndrome. He doesn't have the speech and language necessarily to communicate all that information to us either.
Oh, same
So-
with mine, nonverbal.
Our school, this is not really, but our school does a dog bone business.
Okay.
So they make dog bones. We have a couple different recipes, a peanut butter pumpkin, a whole wheat one, and a barbecue cheddar. And the kids go out and take orders. Then they make them, and then we just put them into like a silicone mold. We have dog bone shaped ones.
Okay.
Bake them, and then they count them, put them in bags, and then have to go to the rooms where they were ordered from, and then collect money, give change. Which, I mean, I have several motor kids that really like doing that, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
That's our plan for November. We have like a foundations of business class with a bunch of kids that have kind of different abilities. And we just got done with their cotton candy and pom-pom sale for homecoming. And so dog bones is our next.
Can I share with you?
Thank you.
We'll make sure that it's in the folder. So yeah, you'll have access to all of the slide decks, everything that's shared will be in a folder that you get access to.
And we will post the video.
Yes, and the video will get processed and posted. All right, well, thank you very much. So the last thing we wanted to share is Youth Apprenticeship does also have accommodations for students with disabilities. And Val and I were talking on our 2-hour ride here this morning because both of us knew that we had seen a statistic about how much impact a job during high school, a paying job during high school has on students with disabilities. It was over 3 times a student that has a job, a student with disabilities that has a job in high school, especially a paying job, is 3 times more likely, over 3, to have a successful job once they graduate. So it is so important to start getting them these work-based learning opportunities already in high school. So the DWD just came out with brand new checklist for everything for youth apprenticeship. So Brooke is going to just click into food and beverage, since that's one that we have a lot of students that are doing up in the CESA 9 region with the districts that we work with. So every position, every one of the pathways that we have has a list of competencies, and students need to be able to accomplish all of these competencies by the time they get done with their program. So food, for example, is one that the DWD has determined can be done within a year. Like, students that are out working in a restaurant should be able to accomplish all of these competencies and get scored out of a 1 to 3 scale, get scored a 2 or a 3 on all of these competencies within a year. So what the DWD has also told us is that we understand that we have some students that are going to need longer time for processing if they're students with disabilities. So they can, instead of it's a 1-year apprenticeship, but they can stretch that over 2 years. So if you've got a junior, for example, that is working in food service, they can actually stretch accomplishing these competencies over their junior and senior year and still get this food youth apprenticeship certification by the end of their senior year. Then the second question that we asked was, well, what about those 18 to 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds that are still in school? And we just asked that at the last DWD meeting, and they said, yeah, actually don't go past that, Brett.
Oh,
Because that's a really good thing to also note is the
Right here.
career preparation section.
Okay.
They said, yeah, if they're still high school students, they can be doing youth apprenticeship even as the 18 to 21-year-old. So it would be the same thing, that they could stretch it across 2 years and still get that youth apprenticeship certification, which not only is great for the student, because youth apprenticeship is kind of the Cadillac version of work-based learning, but also then in September of the year after that student graduates, any certifications that students get, like youth apprenticeship, qualify the district to get grant funding through the
Technical incentive grant.
Yes, so up to $1,000 per student can be requested of the district in the fall for any students that have gotten a list. There's a list that the DEI puts out every year of different certifications that qualify, but youth apprenticeship is one of them. And so, and that is really unencumbered funds that are just can be used for building your CTE program, and that could be your special ed CTE program as well. Another thing I just wanted to point out before we get to the checklist is every student has to now, in the new checklist, do one thing that is considered career preparation. And the 3 choices are: the student has to be participating in components of a local or regional career pathway. So for a student to do that, your district would have to have a local or regional career pathway in that area for you to check that box. But that is one option. A second is that a student is completing a certification, an industry recognized certification that they can then again take with them after graduation. So they give a list of different options. For food, ServeSafe is like the most common one that students are doing as they're out on the job. And then again, the DPI has this list of career and technical approved certifications if they aren't getting one of those. And the third is the student is participating in any kind of dual enrollment course. Usually we look for ones that kind of go along with what students are doing out in the work world. So if they were doing foods, some kind of a dual credit culinary, but it could also be just a general employability skill. So we know we've got like a college 101. I think a lot of our technical colleges now have, that might be a dual credit opportunity that some of your students with disabilities could take advantage of and be doing that at the same time.
And Michelle's example of the culinary course and the customer contact course. Mhm. Yep.
If they get credit, right?
Yep, if they get
Right.
credit. Yeah. And the perfect example that was kind of why I was asking Brian about the youth apprenticeship opportunity. As you have students doing a work-based learning experience at your high school, maybe that junior year, them senior year, and then beyond, if they stay with you beyond 18 years old, this would be a nice gradual kind of progression for them.
And I also wanted to show you what the list looked like. So the first part of the checklist is always the employability skills. So this is the DWD or the DPI's employability skills certification. So the really nice thing about this is for every one of the competencies, it also gives you the criteria. So if you're looking at, develops positive working relationship and you're like, well, what exactly does that look like? They give you a list for every single one of these skills. These are the kinds of things, not that a student has to do every one of them, but these are the types of things we look for in order to score a student in this particular area. And then they would get scored a 1, 2, or a 3. By the time they get done with the program, they have to be at a 2 or a 3. But it's great coaching conversations to have with the student as they're working toward that we, for youth apprenticeship, are required to have meetings after we go through the checklist at the beginning of the year with the employer and the student. We meet 2 more times with them each year to go through the checklist, and that way the student can kind of see where they are, and if they're at ones for some of the skills, they know what they need to work on next. So I could definitely see, if you're working with students with disabilities and you're stretching this out, how you might take these competency checklists and just kind of break them down and say, okay, we're going to be working on these competencies for this month. And so, we're going to make sure that when you're on the job, and again, having that conversation with your employers, that here are the things that we need the student to work on this month to make sure that they have this competency down by the time they get done. So some of these can also, I think you said 10% of them, so probably one of them. If, for example, go to number 14. For foods, fast food would work for just about everything except the brand new one that they added, which is competency 14. And that really requires a student to have formal dining room service skills. So they need to know how to serve from the right or the left. I don't even know which way you do it. How to set the table appropriately with the cutlery and remove cutlery plates for empty seats, and how to clear plates without interrupting people if a meeting is going on. Again, you don't have to do every single one of these things. I don't even know what a family service versus English service versus American service meal is, but enough of them so that you could say, yeah, the student has a really good idea about what formal dining is all about and what they would need to do. But this particular one, say that they're working at McDonald's, and this is not a competency, obviously, they're ever going to get at McDonald's, but maybe this is something that you do within your classroom with that student, that they're not going to have the opportunity to do this on the job, but you're going to make sure that they have the experience of doing this so that you can check them off and sign off that they have accomplished this particular competency. You look like you have a question, Trish.
So for food service, you can do a fast food restaurant as long as you cover that section in a classroom.
That's the big one that they're never, ever going to do. There are some of the other
You can't do that, or you can do that?
You can do that. That's what I'm saying is we're really, for our regular youth apprenticeship coordinators, we're really dissuading them from doing fast food with their students, just because a lot of our small districts don't have family and consumer science classes anymore. So there's nowhere that students are going to get that. But because you have so much contact with your students with disabilities, you could handle that in a classroom.
The other thing,
Our youth apprenticeship coordinators aren't going to be able to.
sorry,
Nope, go
the
ahead.
other thing too is the employer can also substitute that particular competency for something else. The challenge with that is that they did a really good job being comprehensive in the listing of competencies, that it's hard to find like what's missing. But sometimes if you have like a unique employer that has something that they do that's not on this list, you could do that substitution.
So I work with students in a 18 to 21 in a manufacturing setting.
Mhm.
So is there competencies for that?
Absolutely.
Lots of them.
Yep, lots of them. Most of
Probably.
our students that are just starting off at an entry level are doing assembly and packaging. And that, again, it's a one-year one, but here you've got 12 different assembly and packaging competencies, and that could then be stretched across 2 years.
So they have to complete a total of 19, all 7 of the fundamental competencies. So all 7 of these, and then an additional 12 of this
Assembly and
list.
packaging.
It is only 12 more.
Yeah, I guess so.
So it's all of them.
It's all of them.
But that would be another one that
11
the
to 12, it's
DWD always allows
Oh.
us, as we're looking at this list, if the employer says, yep, I can assure that, they're going to do all 7 of these, absolutely. And of the other 12, maybe performing safety checks. We're never going to have a student do. I would think they would absolutely have a student do, but let's just say that one. You do have, as Brooke said, the option of saying, okay, for just that one, we're going to put an NA, but then we're going to come up with another skill that they're going to accomplish that is about assembly and packaging. And again, you would do that in cooperation with the employer, and they would give you an idea of like what isn't already in the list. But as we said, it's really kind of difficult to do that because the DWD did a very good job of coming up with these checklists and making sure everything was
And
covered.
these are all found on the DWD.
Mhm.
I can find.
Yep.
They are, but it's going to be in the folder that we give you after this. So
Yeah.
yeah. you'll
And you have-
access to all of these.
And you have coordinators at each of your schools that are quite familiar with this too. So to connect with them too.
I'm going to.
I apologize if you already answered this, but if you get, so I know students with disabilities get 2 years to do one.
Mhm.
Does that mean they have to take 2 classes in the field for their 1 year?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a great question.
Mhm.
Because that was the kind of like my red flag that I've had with a couple students.
Yeah. Yeah, the requirement from the DWD is they have to be doing 1 credit of coursework for the year that they are, for each year of the.
Yeah.
of the
Okay. Is it 1
apprenticeship.
credit
So
or 1 class?
1 credit.
One
So
high
they have
school
one high
credit.
school
Classes.
One high
Because a lot
school
of
or
ours are
3
semester
college.
credits that are in the competency, so they have to basically take 1 full year of a class.
Something.
And your question is, do they have to do that the second year as well?
Correct.
Yeah.
We will ask and find
Yeah.
out.
Okay.
That one, we forgot to ask about the coursework part. We were just.
And they can also work during the summer too.
Well, and
So,
the hardest part for me is the coursework part of it.
Mhm.
Like, I know, I think I could get a couple kids doing the YA and get a business involved, but getting that 1 credit, maybe like the EBD kids we're talking about that are like, I'm not going in there, but yet they'll go to work and.
But like the classes that you've come up with for those students, I mean, that would be.
I didn't realize those could count, but it makes sense because they are
Mhm.
accredited
As long
classes.
as, yeah,
Mhm.
as long as they're getting credit for them. So, yeah. So if you have your students with disabilities that are doing them, you might have like an employability skills class that you have your students taking while they're out doing their YA, and that's going to be their coursework. So that way you will be able to support them. That would make perfect sense to me because you'd be able to support what they're doing in the field because you see them constantly in this class.
So a special ed class could count as your related coursework.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a YA, like you were just saying, you're doing a YA in manufacturing, and then in addition, for your students, you provide a soft skills course that you're giving a credit for, you fulfill both of those for kids.
and so just because we have such a good partner here, Brian,
I just said, we're doing this. So-
merchandising would probably be the closest alignment for for what students would do
That's
at
the one
Goodwill.
that-
Which alignment is that?
Merchandising.
And that's the one that a lot of our kids that are like, at Walmart, that's what they're doing. The one thing that they added that wasn't on it before is e-commerce orders. So do you guys do that through
Not at
Goodwill?
the store level.
Okay,
We have
so
an
again,
e-commerce site.
that might be something like, we have a business teacher in Oconto Falls that said, "Psh, that's no problem. I do that in my classes. So I'll handle that component and I'll know that I'm just gonna be the one to score that and sign off on it.
We did not set you up, Brian. We really didn't.
But we have been having conversations like this
I
for the
already
last
wrote it
couple of
down.
weeks. Like, this is so nice. I've been a special ed director for a decade. And the idea that I've never had a student do youth apprenticeship. And when Lynn and I started talking, I was so disappointed in our conversation. Like we haven't connected the dots well enough for kids, knowing that youth apprenticeship is the gold standard of work-based learning, and that our kids with disabilities are the least likely to be employed after graduation. Why are we not giving them the best possible opportunity, which could be for some kids, why? I mean, obviously we know it's not the best opportunity for all kids, but I don't think it was on the table, at least at IEP meetings or in conversations that I was having in the past, and it needs to be.
Because we found that we had 98 students that just for the 10 districts that we managed through CESA 9, but all 22 of our districts do YA through some consortium. With our 10 districts, 2% of the students were students with disabilities, which means 2 kids out of our 100 were students that had IEPs, and that, absolutely needs to change.
So answer this question.
Okay,
So
I'll try.
I like the young lady I'm thinking of right now works with us at Goodwill, and we're trying to extend her hours to longer. But she also works 1 day a week at another merchandising store. Does it have to be with one business, or can it be multiple?
As long as you're within the same pathway, she's doing the same kind of work. You would have both of the employers complete what we call an ETA. And
So both of them.
And then both of them, you would have the conversation with both of them as you're doing the storing, and they both would sign off at the end.
And can this be retroactive?
Kind
Like if
of.
I work on setting somebody up now and they've been doing this, obviously at Goodwill, this is her 3rd year, isn't it?
Okay, we can't go back that
Goodwill,
far.
but probably not that far,
Yeah.
but yet.
So there's what we're told by the DWD and what we try to do. So what they tell us is once we get the paperwork, once the DWD gets the paperwork, we can go back 30 days from the time they get the paperwork. What we generally do, and Jean has been very successful when she puts these in, is if a kid signs up like in the fall, we always put June 1st as the date that they actually signed up. And we make sure that as like everybody is signing the forms, they're putting that same date. Because if we say June 1st, but the paperwork is dated, Halloween, the DWD, that's going to be a red flag to them. But we have been successful in getting those summer hours that included.
But they need 90 hours over 2 years.
They need 450.
400,
hours.
sorry. 450, I was
for
back
1
to the other
year.
one,
So-
but
so, yeah.
450 hours
So
over
that would
2
be
years.
stretched across, yeah, and 200 of those hours can be summer hours, the other 250 have to be during the school year.
And then make sure the funds will come back to your program, because when they come back to the district, many districts plop it in Fund 10 and call it good. So they have this money that they get to use however they want. So make sure that it's earmarked for
But
the
we have
way
to
you want
apply
it.
For that directly, correct?
You do, the
Yeah.
district does, but a lot of times like the CTE teachers will take care of that, and then they'll be like, well, we just take turns spending the money. So this is my year and next year it's your year. So if you've got your kiddos in there, you need to get on the list of, hey, that's the money, at least for my kids, needs to come back from my program so that we can continue to build that.
Because we're investing in the PACE program or something like that.
Exactly.
I mean.
Speaking of which, I did want to mention that there is specifically, when you were applying for ESSER 3 funds, your district has to check which areas they're going to spend the money in. There's a specific area that, which is about helping to keep kids from dropping out, which seems strange, but if you click into that and you read the specifics on it, basically anything you're doing around academic and career planning can then use the ESSER 3 funds for that. So if you're interested in finding out, like, because I know those applications are coming up pretty fast, are they, or were they September 30th?
Well, they can edit them though.
They can edit.
They can go back
Okay.
and edit.
That if you want to know which box that is, I'm happy to share that with you because yeah, then you can, if you check that box, basically anything you're doing under academic and career planning can be paid for with those ESSER funds.
That's cool.
I was just trying to find it.
ESSER 3, I just thought it was ESSER funds.
No, there's ESSER 1, 2, and 3, and each one has different parameters. So ESSER 3 is the ones that are like, that everybody's working in right
Most
now. I
recent.
think 1 and 2 have already, like, they've done the paperwork and they're spending it already. But 3 is the one that the districts are determining right now how they're spending it. Great. Any other questions on YA? We're just really excited to get this information out to districts because I don't think districts, especially with youth apprenticeship, know the accommodations that we can provide and, you know, how we can work with the program to make sure that it is available for your students, because we are looking at, we want to have at least 4% for our kids this year and continue to build that. So we really want to make sure that districts know that that's in place.
And I will tell you the tech in Wausau, they've been rock stars in trying to get special ed. Of course, I haven't followed suit, but I know they are like telling us what you can do to get students. So I know the tech in Wausau is really good. Because it must be run through the tech somehow.
They have a YA, right? They have a YA.
NTC does, yeah, is one of the consortiums, so they probably are.
Because they have a YA meeting every month when we have our career planning. YA has a separate meeting within that meeting with them.
Yeah, some districts are big enough that they do it on their own. Some districts have a consortium like Marshfield, I think is through the chamber. But then we have another number of districts that go through NTC, and then we have 10 districts that go through CESA. So all 22 of our districts do have it. Though.
I just thought it was run to the schools. I didn't.
Oh, no, every consortium looks different. Yeah. All right. Well, like we said, you're going to get access to everything that was presented this morning. So we'll give you access to the shared folder. We will be working on getting the video from today's presentation up onto YouTube, and then we'll put that on our website, and we'll send a link to that as well. But we're just really grateful to have you here today and hope that you're taking some good information back with you. And if you ever need anything, we are an email away.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Stop the.
Thank you, Debbie. Deb.